Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
О, бля! Игорь!
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 354 of the news. And we have some very big news today. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine here on day 354. But we're going to take a quick break from tonight's normal war reporting and take a trip over to the Yukon territory of Canada, as we've heard another interesting story today where another unidentified object has been shot down over the northwestern area of the North American continent as F-22s intercepted an unknown or unidentified flying object over the northern area of the Yukon and shot it down. According to the Department of Defense, the object was smaller than a balloon, larger than the small car-sized object that was shot down off the coast of Alaska just the other day, but it was cylindrically shaped. We're not really sure what this vehicle is exactly at this point. However, we do have a couple of suspects, and of course a poll is up on that at the very moment. We do have this article, and this one is as prototypical as the rest as far as the reports on this is going, and I'll read off to y'all real quick what it's been saying about the incident that occurred in the Yukon today. He said, and this is the Prime Minister of Canada, said the latest object violated Canadian airspace and was shot down over the Yukon in northwest Canada. Both the United States and Canada were scrambled to track down the object, with the Prime Minister of Canada saying that the object was shot down by United States F-22 fighter jets. This is the third object to be shot down over North America in the last week. The first object being the balloon near Myrtle Beach in South Carolina, the second object being right off the coast of Alaska yesterday, and today another object was shot down in the Yukon, in the very northwest of Canada. This object only got 100 miles away from U.S. airspace within Alaska, and this was further followed today by the entirety of Montana's airspace, further on down in the United States, being closed for military training exercises, showing that a little bit more may be unfolding behind the scenes than we're being led to believe in the public, and that there may be a very tense diplomatic standoff, or maybe even getting into a heated standoff with the Chinese and our airspace in the northwestern part of the continent, or it could be something else entirely. We aren't exactly sure at this point, and not a lot of news is coming out about the aircrafts shot down yesterday and the ones shot down today. So we'll be keeping apprised on this news as best as possible and trying to report to y'all what we can find, but at the moment, all we know is that the object shot down today was small and cylindrical, but the concept of small is relative because they said it was smaller than the balloon that was shot down over South Carolina. So that could practically be anything in aviation terms in between a Cessna 172 in size or even smaller, or all the way up to about a Boeing 737, which is about as wide as that balloon was. So we're now going to be moving on.
I'm not really sure, but I've seen several people say it. And disclaimer, we have not confirmed this yet, but I'm seeing reports that another one or two more have been shot down subsequently after that first one, but we don't know. I'll have to do some research on that.
I wasn't able to find that, and we were searching this news story just minutes before the stream, making sure that it was as up-to-date as possible. I have not heard of additional objects being shot down over Canada, but we will make sure to try and get that news, and if we find it, we'll be reporting it tomorrow. Of course, make sure to weigh in on the poll we have thrown up on this, because we actually have a couple of options as to who the likely suspects may be about where that drone or whatever it may be originated from. We're now going to be moving on from this bit of news, of course reported on by the BBC and every other mainstream news network around pretty much the world and the the North American continent, and we're now going to be moving back into Ukraine and back into our normal news, as today is no normal day. Today's been an incredibly exceptional day. Just about 4 or 3 days ago, I told all of you that we had seen the highest loss day, the bloodiest day for the Russian armed forces over the course of this entire war, and that y'all could expect within probably a decent amount of time that number would drastically climb as they're entering a desperate phase of this war. That number did in fact climb, and today was the highest number that we have ever seen in terms of equipment losses and personnel losses in the Russian armed forces history during this war. So with that in mind, we're going to be moving right into our location unknowns where we have the casualty report, this marker right here. And if you're a little rushed and you want to get ahead and see this right now, because we're going to be going through all the location unknowns in order, there is a link in the description below to this map that I'm using on stream. We custom make it every single night here for this stream specifically, and you can click on the link in the description below and go to that exact marker and see it or follow along with me at your own pace. So starting off with our first bit of location unknown news, before we get to the casualty report, we saw a mound of bullets, and this gives us an idea of the kind of rate of fire that some Ukrainian units are putting down range to keep the Russians at bay. So let's see what we got. We've got a nice long chain of bullets for the MG3. I've got to tell you, even decades, nearly 70 years after the original MG42s and 34s would be put in service in Germany, the MG3 is still one of the best looking machine guns out there, in my opinion. It looks beautiful.
Very nice.
I mean, you see them sifting around on the ground on the literal floor of bullet casings that they have, because they fired so many rounds at the Russians just overnight. So there is no dirt down there anymore. It's a brass floor. You see them digging through it, and you see that the amount of brass is about an inch, inch and a half, maybe even 2 inches deep. And we can see another MG3 over there, and a third MG3 right there. And ammo boxes galore, and also a guy who's in a blanket. And so, as we can see, there's a lot of ammunition on the ground right there, and I'm sure that some range officer or some FUD is about to run up to these guys and say, "You can't take your brass home, that's property of the range now." But anyways, with that, that's the end of the clip. Yes, we're firing shots at range officers right now, that is the thing. But with that, that's the end of the clip, and I gotta say, absolutely impressive the amount of fire that they laid down range, and I wonder how many barrels they had to replace on this MG3 to keep that rate of fire up, or how many barrels they had to replace on all three of those MG3s to keep those things running. It must take a lot to keep this machine gun nest, or the machine gun nests, that's in this one trench running, but impressive to see, and it's giving you an idea of how ferocious the battles have been at night in this area wherever this was filmed. We're now moving on into our next clip of Location Unknown News, where we can see Russian POW asking other Russian soldiers to lay down their arms.
Матера российских солдат. Звоните своим солдатам, пускай они едут домой.
We see him standing there.
Оружие. Играться мы здесь не будем.
And that's the end of the clip. He didn't really say a lot. He just kind of, said, "Lay down your arms," and yeah, and that was it. But still, another Russian prisoner captured. Moving on to the next clip, we can also see some Russian soldiers sitting on the ground, of course blindfolded. It's a great pastime of Russian soldiers to sit on the floor blindfolded. It's something they love to do. And while they're sitting there, they're listening to the anthem of Ukraine and drinking some kind of drink out of these small cups. So here's the clip.
This looks kind of comical.
I don't know
Man,
why.
they're really gripping that cup.
Yeah,
they're like just caressing it.
They look like two kids at the playground that just got out for recess, and they're like drinking their little sippy drinks, like Kool-Aids or whatever, the Capri Suns, and they're just listening to a song in the background. Gotta say, though, it's great to know that they were able to capture some prisoners today, and we've seen, as far as I remember with how I put out this news tonight, these are all the prisoner videos we can find today. Was the other one and this one. So it looks like we've been able to confirm that the Ukrainians took 3 additional Russian prisoners today, and these guys are just sitting down and listening to some good tunes. And we play that song at the beginning of every night, the Ukrainian anthem. We're now moving on to our next bit of Location Unknown News, where we can also see a sniper doing his job and sniping. And I've got to say, he's doing a fairly good job. See him looking into the distance. You see him firing, and we can see a small little glint of light in the distance showing that there's a heat signature out there. He fires a second time. And he fires a third time. The glint of light's still there, but we don't really know if he took him down or not. We can now see more Russians getting up. Now we can clearly see a large squad of Russians. They're just moving around lackadaisically. They don't really know that they're being watched by a sniper at this very moment. We can hear some explosions in the distance. Sniper looking around. And I've got to say, I don't know what kind of optic this is. And also, it appears that he's shooting at a range of around 400 meters, as we can see on the bottom left of the screen. So it's not the farthest shots we've seen, but they are quite far. 400 meters is not a thing to scoff at. You now see him firing there. And I don't think he's hitting these guys. It looks like he might just be snapping a bullet near them and pinning them down. This guy's now moving. Wait a minute, hang on. Whoa, whoa, correction. Actually, that's not a guy that's just kind of like has a little bit of himself peeking over the top of the berm. They're actually so far away. That was a whole guy standing up, and now their whole squad's moving in the open. And he's firing at them as they move. Is he going to hit him? Oh, they grouped up. Bad mistake. Looks like one of them dropped to the ground, but we can't really tell for certain. Now it appears that the optic is looking towards the ground. And it sounds like that Russian squad's now returning fire. It doesn't sound like he's getting close to the sniper, though, because we don't hear any bullets bouncing off the ground.
The Russians are in a panic.
Oh my god. Slight chance of lead today. Keep your heads down. Or pull out an umbrella, maybe. We still
I can just visualize like the whole scene right now without even seeing it.
You know, some guy right now, Matthew, is running, holding that AK one-handed on full auto, just spraying it like over his head into the air as he's running. You know, one of them's doing that.
Friendly casualties are running high.
Out of that whole entire engagement right there, we never heard a single round snap off the ground near the sniper, because we're hearing the audio from his perspective, and we didn't hear a single one. So we can assume that everywhere they're firing is everywhere the sniper isn't, so he may have been able to get out of there perfectly fine without the Russians even knowing where he was. So with that, we're now going to be moving on from this hailstorm of lead that we just saw there. It's good to know that the snipers of Ukraine can also be weathermen and bring in the weather that they're looking for, which is a slight chance of bullet fall. And we're now going to be moving on into our next clip of Location Unknown News, where we could see a picture of some Japanese volunteers. I just thought this was really neat because we've never really seen a lot of Japanese volunteers in this war. And so seeing this picture was just really neat. And it's great to know that there are so many people that support Ukraine all around the world, that countries that even seem incredibly far removed, both diplomatically and politically, like Japan, have volunteers that have arrived in Ukraine or helping them out. The Japanese are also really great people too. We have some Japanese viewers, and it's good to know that their country is also being represented in the fields of Ukraine here. The last time a Japanese soldier was represented here in this area was back in World War II. And a funny enough story, if I remember it correctly, the guy fought at the Battle of Kakengol, which happened in Manchuria in between the Soviets and the Japanese. He ended up getting captured somehow, and the Russians sent him to a gulag and then pulled him out of the gulag and forced him to fight against the Nazis in Eastern Europe in the fields of Ukraine. He was then captured somewhere in that area by the Germans, and then the Germans, because he was a Japanese soldier originally, said, "Oh, you're kind of like our ally," and then they put him in the German military, and he ended up on the beaches of Normandy during D-Day defending the bunkers. So yeah, pretty crazy story. That was the last time, I believe, a Japanese soldier ever fought anywhere in the Eastern European area. If I remember correctly, I may be wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong. But a funny story, and also great to see that the Japanese volunteers are back and at it again. And so we're now going to be moving on into the news that y'all are all here for, the casualty report. Now, I have to tell y'all, hang on to your seats. If you always get a little queasy whenever the casualty reports come around, you are probably going to pass out tonight. You may even faint. The numbers are unbelievably high. They are insane. So let me get y'all into them, and let's get everyone who's going to faint to faint. Also, thank you for correcting me, Lars. He was Korean, but I believe Korea was occupied by the Japanese, and so he ended up serving in the Japanese Imperial Army. But I might be wrong. Anyways, 1,140 Russian soldiers have been killed over the past 24 hours.
That is crazy.
That is insane. That means that an entire battalion tactical group was wiped out in killed numbers alone, and then another half of a battalion tactical group was killed as well. That is a massive amount. This is an unbelievable amount. In fact, keep this in mind, everyone. 2,000 soldiers total would die on the Allied side during D-Day on June 6th of 1944. Over that 124-hour period, 2,000 soldiers would die. The Russians are just 800 short of D-Day right now on a normal day. This is the craziest thing. It's not even a big day for them. They're not launching brand new offensives anywhere. The Battle of Bakhmut, Vulhedar, and Kremenna are still ongoing, and Kremenna is an incredibly small burning battle. And they took 1,140 soldiers killed. Once again, this is an approximate as well, so this could be a couple of hundred above this number. It could be going all the way up to around 1,400 killed, or it could be going down to the area probably around 900 killed. Regardless, these numbers are incredibly high. Insanely high. And this is showing, because these numbers are starting to drastically climb as time goes on, there's not much more life left for the Russian army unless if drastic measures are taken. And one of those drastic measures would be calling up another partial mobilization of reservists and then pumping those fresh bodies into the lines to at least keep them manned. We saw that another 3 armored personnel carriers were destroyed today, an incredibly small number, especially compared to the amount of infantry that were killed, showing that they're lacking armored personnel carrier support by and large in most areas. 8 supply trucks were destroyed. This is quite an exorbitant number, especially at this point in the war. We usually see somewhere around 4 to 3 supply trucks being destroyed, so seeing an entire 8 of them destroyed shows that the supply lines and the logisticians of the Russian army are going to be having a fairly hard time fulfilling their supply quotas for today. 9 additional tanks were also destroyed today. This is an incredibly high number by any measure during most of the war, as 10 tanks make up an entire battalion tactical group's worth of armored force. So seeing 9 of them destroyed over 24 hours means that a battalion tactical group just lost almost all of its tank forces, save 1. 19 artillery pieces were destroyed over the past 24 hours. This is the highest number we've seen in 3 months. So this is incredible, and I don't even know how they were able to counter batteries so effectively to destroy 19 SPGs over 24 hours, but I'm not going to scoff at it. That is impressive, and great to know that they were able to knock out more artillery pieces out of the numerous that the Russians have and continue to use in Ukraine. Another 27 drones were also shot down today. Quite a high number. We rarely ever see numbers like that. No aircraft, no helicopters today. They were able to shoot down the 61 cruise missiles that we saw yesterday, so we know that they were now accounted for in today's casualty report. An anti-aircraft warfare vehicle was destroyed. We did see that one on film today as a Tor-1. I guess you could say surface-to-air missile launcher. It was destroyed. That means that a $15 million surface-to-air missile system was destroyed in one hit today. And then Matthew's favorite, 3 entire Bobcat skid steers.
Oh, I gotta say that's very good, but it's not their best. But I'm very pleased.
I gotta say, it's nothing bad. I mean, they got the number up to 214. And hopefully we'll see that even more Bobcat skid steers are destroyed as this war keeps going, because it looks like with the lack of infantry, there's not really going to be a lot of Russian soldiers left to operate any of these vehicles, so hopefully they'll just be sitting around in supply depots further back behind the lines with no one to use them and get destroyed in mass, but we don't really know that for sure yet. So with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news right there. This is pretty much the massive news of the night, is just the number of infantry that have been killed. And let me think. Highest casualty days in World War II for the U.S. List of battles with most U.S. military fatalities. So let's scroll on down. Let's see. Estimated number killed. So there are only, and let me go down here. So these are all of the battles, I guess you could say, beyond the Battle of Savo Island, where more soldiers got killed over an entire battle that the Russians lost today. And look at this. The Battle of Taejon, which occurred in the Korean War, 1,128 U.S. soldiers were killed. And that was over the course of July 14th to July 21st. So for the United States to take on the losses that the Russians took today in the number killed, we fought for nearly, and let me think about the number, about 7 or 8 days to get the same number of killed that they got in 24 hours. To go back even to any numbers that actually mean anything at all, the Battle of Fredericksburg, which was a fairly large battle in the U.S. Civil War, nearer to the beginning, over the course of 4 days, it appears that the Union forces lost about 1,284 over the course of 4 days. And if we go all the way up to the top, right here, over the course of 10 days, this is one of the highest lost battles that we've seen in, I guess you could say, modern history for the number of killed that the U.S. suffered. At the Battle of Elsinborn Ridge, we lost an estimated number of 5,000 killed. And that was over the course of 10 days. So even if you divide that down over the course of 10 days, we're still not getting close to the average number of Russian soldiers that are being killed daily in Ukraine. Unbelievable to think. I think that's actually crazy when you really put that into perspective. The U.S. has never really had a day as bloody as the ones the Russians are having right now. The worst we've ever gotten to was the Battle of D-Day, where 2,500 soldiers were killed over a single 24-hour period. That is the highest number we have on a single given day, ever. And the Russians are almost trying to get up there where they can compete with that on a daily basis. Absolutely
crazy.
Yeah, absolutely unbelievable. And then if you look at the kills, the amount of U.S. soldiers killed over campaigns, entire campaigns, like the Battle of Guam, the Po Valley Offensive, the Second Battle of the Marne, have nearly the same amount of deaths that the Russians took just today. Like, I can't even put this into perspective. The Second Battle of the Marne was massive. And we only took 1,926 killed. The Russians are only about 600 to 700 dead soldiers away from that today. And today isn't even a significant or massive day. They're not making massive landfills amount of ground or conducting an incredible defense like we did at the Second Battle of the Marne. Nothing is happening like that. It's just another day, and they're losing so many soldiers. It can be compared with some of the bloodiest days in American history. Absolutely unbelievable. So we're now going to be moving on from that because I thought that was a huge comparison to bring up, actually putting it into perspective how high these daily losses really are. And we're now going to be moving on to our last clip of Location Unknown News, where we saw a Ukrainian dugout. And this thing was pretty nice. I think this is the one that Russian was talking about on that intercepted phone call, Matthew, where it's like, they crawl out of the ground. They got like an underground city in there. Because this looks like an underground city. I'm going to have to mute it because it's playing like AC/DC. But we can see him moving around. We can see they even have doors in this thing. Little pantries and stuff, like with Coca-Cola. Opening up another door. He walks in here. They have like a little furnace and some beds and some racks for their coats. They even got a little
Russians
neon...
built this?
No, Ukrainians built this.
I was about to say, there's no way the Russians built something like this.
Dude, the Russians are out here playing Escape from Tarkov. Meanwhile, the Ukrainians are playing Minecraft. They even got a TV in the ceiling. Like, this is just too much. Like, guys just hanging out down here sleeping. I bet you they got air conditioning, too. That guy's got a whole TV! That guy's got a whole TV! I didn't even see that the first time I watched this. Let's watch that again. Instant replay. He's got a whole freaking TV.
I don't know if he's in like a COD lobby, like in the afternoon, like playing COD.
Dude, he's sitting there killing people in COD and sitting there going, "Listen, kid, you don't even know how to do this. I do this for a living, okay?" I mean, like, oh my gosh. And also, is that a stove? Because it's got these weird like vents at the top. I don't know what that thing is.
Made like a small engine.
Maybe it kind of does look like a small engine, doesn't it? But with that's
you wouldn't want to start that down there for sure.
Oh no. Hey, I'm starting to feel a little tired and nauseous. But anyways, that's the end of this little clip, and I've just got to say, it's totally unbelievable the kind of stuff you see, and you wouldn't believe it unless if you saw this stuff. Like, look, they even have like a floor and everything down here. This thing's just crazy. That's all I've got to say. Absolutely insane, and it's nuts to see and believe that Ukrainian soldiers go through this kind of effort to make their living conditions as good as possible on the front lines. This honestly would probably be considered a mini hotel in Japan, like one of those little slot hotels where you like live in the small hole in the wall.
Yeah, somewhat. Like a capsule hotel or something?
Yeah, a capsule. This is like a capsule hotel that they've just built on the front lines for themselves.
Yeah, somewhat. Just missing the capsule part.
Yeah, missing the capsule part, but still impressive to say the least. So with that, we're now going to be moving on from this little clip of news, once again incredible to see, and we're now moving on from our location unknowns and on into the front line at large. But before we do, I thought we would cover something incredibly interesting before we get to the front lines, because we've gotten an interesting statement from a Ukrainian official today that is somewhat backing up the claims I've been making for a little bit. So here, I'll just read it off to y'all. According to Andriy Chernyak, who is representative of the main intelligence directorate of the Ukraine's defense ministry, he says that the Russian forces lack the resources to launch a large-scale offensive against Ukraine within the next few weeks. So he's not ruling out that a large offensive could happen, but he's definitely saying that it's not happening within the next few weeks. And I think this is very important to differentiate, because there are a lot of Ukraine war analysts here on YouTube that believe that an offensive is coming up, and it may. I still don't think it will, but it may. But then there are some that are saying that it's practically going to be happening within the next few days. It has been made clear by Andriy Chernyak that it cannot happen at least for the next few weeks. So we're going to assume at least 3 weeks is a window where the Russians cannot launch any kind of offensive. So we're looking at them starting something in early May at this timetable. And by then, it wouldn't be opportune because, of course, we've got to remember the weather. Right now, we're going through an incredibly snowy season in Ukraine's climate. And as March rolls around, that snow will begin to melt. The temperatures will begin to rise again like they did last year. And we'll see that the fields of Ukraine become this muddy cesspit that really nothing can operate in. And every single vehicle will get bogged down in. So right now, based off of what what Andriy Chernyak is saying, the Russians will not be able to launch a successful offensive because the opportune window of frozen soil, like we're seeing right now, is going to pass by the time they're able to launch their offensive, at least according to what he's saying. So with that,
I thought the Ukrainian government had said like a week or two ago that they figured something large was going to happen, or something drastic on the 24th.
I believe that's being changed now, because it seems as though there's not really that much of an indication that anything really is going to happen, because there's not like a huge dedication of forces. We can't see a buildup of forces anywhere, and considering that everyone is going with a hardcore number of 500,000, 500,000 soldiers, that's been the number, and thousands of tanks and thousands of armored personnel carriers, and they're all supposedly in the Zaporizhia area. We can't see them. Like, no one's ever been able to show them on satellite pictures from what I know, and no one's found these massive buildups on satellite pictures. But you have to remember, the buildups of troops all the way around Ukraine's border, from the area near Gomel and all the way down into Crimea, was so large at the beginning of 2022 that the U.S. was able to pinpoint the camps on satellite and show the amount of forces and properly estimate it off of that. We're not getting any of that this time. We're not seeing any satellite pictures of these massive camps, and considering that the number of troops is twice the initial number that was used in the original invasion and condensed into an area that is about 1/20th the size, it should be incredibly easy to find these massive numbers of troops that are all hanging out somewhere in between Mariupol and Melitopol. But we haven't really seen it. And I'm not really thinking that it will, for that reason, happen, because we're not getting any physical proof, picture or video evidence of these massive buildups to be able to confirm that they are going to happen. And Big Guy said,
I guess they were just erring on the side of caution then, by presuming something would happen. I guess that's a safer alternative than guessing nothing would happen.
Maybe, and it's always better to be to err on the side of caution instead of acting like nothing will happen. So the Ukrainians are operating through the right mindset, because even while I think an offensive won't happen, the Ukrainians should be ready for any offensive that may happen. That's just a point of military planning. And some people are saying that they're going to be pushing through Belarus, but I've heard from most people and a lot of the, I guess you say, war analysts on YouTube, that it's going to be happening somewhere in the south, somewhere around Zaporizhia, and they're going to try and punch through around the Huilopol area area and move up to Vulhedar and then move over to Dnipro and Zaporizhia and create this massive, I guess you could say, breakthrough behind the hardened and well-defended Ukrainian lines in Donetsk that the Ukrainians may retreat out of Donetsk. I'm just not seeing any of that, though, because we don't have any proof that they're even there. And then on top of that, where are they finding the additional 3,000 tanks? We assume that they're almost out of tanks because based off of our initial numbers of operational tanks, they only have about 1,000 left. And that's even pulling a lot of T-62Ms out of storage to bolster their numbers. So I don't know where they would find an additional 3,000 tanks, around 5,000 armored personnel carriers or anything like that, because from what we know, they don't have enough operational tanks to be able to build a force like that. So I hope that addresses that information fairly well that we got from, let me make sure I get his name correct again. His name is Andrei Cherniak. Hopefully that addresses that information fairly well. And once again, it's reiterating the idea that I think that there won't be a massive offensive that happens, and this is something that the Russians are trying to stir up and make people fearmonger over. But once again, just to reiterate, I'm not saying that's a definite thing. An offensive could happen, and I may be massively misinformed, and I just don't know it yet. So we'll keep an eye out, and I'm not going to say that I'm definitively right or wrong or anything like that. We'll be seeing what occurs over the next month, and if an offensive does happen, I was wrong. If an offensive doesn't happen, then it turns out it was probably never going to happen. So with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. And now it's time for us to move on from that big piece of news and on into the front lines itself and see what's been occurring around the front today. And we've actually seen a decent amount of action, once again, equally spread all the way from Svatove and down to Vasilivka, just south of Zaporizhia. Before we get into all of this news, though, we have to cover the polls, because I plugged one of the polls at the beginning of the stream about the unidentified aircraft shot down over the Yukon heavily, and I must hear what all of y'all are thinking about that, because it looks like the results were largely in one direction. So with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so for our first question segment, we have 4 polls to address, including the one that just went up a second ago. So the very first one said, the U.S. just took down another unidentified cylindrical aircraft over Canada. What are your thoughts? It looks like 74% said it must be Russia and or China, 17% said I'm completely baffled, and 9% said it's someone else. And I have to admit on this one, I am honestly baffled. The description we've been given is very vague. It's a cylindrical object of some sort with no visible means of propulsion, which is somewhat strange definition. And also, it was shot down by a U.S. fighter jet and not a Canadian one, even though it was over Canadian airspace. But it's just so vague right now, it's really hard to tell what's going on. And this is the second one that's been shot down. The other one was over Alaska, or at least the coast of Alaska. So I'm not really sure what to think. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'm going to say that it is most likely an object of Russian or Chinese origin, although that is making a huge assumption. I'm honestly going to have to be baffled as well. I'm going to have to switch my opinion and say I'm baffled, because we have no idea where the thing came from even. There's not a lot of information about it, rather than it was cylindrical and it was flying over the Yukon and was shot down by F-22s. Once again with AIM-9Xs. Interesting enough, every single vehicle that's been intercepted over the past week, all 3 of them have been shot down by F-22s and AIM-9Xs. So
F-22 for the win.
Yeah,
it's gotten more kills this week than it ever has.
Dude, the F-22 pilots must have been doing rain dances on the airfield for some kills or something, because it's happening now. They're getting more action than they ever had. Call them George Costanza, because this is just unbelievable compared to their normal record and their run. But anyways, getting past that Seinfeld joke, which I don't know if anyone's going to catch on.
And real quick, I saw Eduardo Espinosa say, is it a missile? Eduardo, I had that same thought earlier, because the description we've been given is somewhat strange. A cylindrical object, what's a missile? Cylindrical, I was wondering if maybe they're playing some word games with that, and maybe it is a missile and they're trying to disguise it as, questionable. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. It's just such a weird scenario. They also closed down Montana northern airspace earlier today for this. So that's also unusual. So I'm just not really sure what to think.
And also, I do see this, and so I guess we'll have to address it. Some people are saying that it was a UFO, and I think it would be kind of odd that a spacefaring, civilization would be able to travel light years all the way to, Earth, and then be shot down by an F-22 with an AIM-9X. I feel like that would be a little odd if that did happen. So I'm, of course, ruling that out for that reason.
Now, I was told before the stream started I wasn't allowed to bring up the possibility it could be aliens, and Enforcer just brought it up.
Well, I'm bringing it down because it's high. It's practically implausible. Because what in the world would the chances be, Matthew, that a civilization is so advanced that they can travel light years of distance with no effort, arrive here on Earth, and then we just shoot them down with an F-22 and an AIM-9X? I feel like that would just be practically impossible. And the reason why I said not to bring it up is because we don't even want to entertain the idea that that could have happened. Because obviously, if a civilization has the ability to get here, certainly they wouldn't be shot down so easily by an F-22 with an AIM-9X. So,
no, I'm not really like entertaining that as a real possibility. If I were to speculate, I would probably say that maybe China has gotten ahead of us in weapons development, potentially. That's my wildest guess. But even at that, that's really shaky, because to think China is really that far ahead of us would be mind-blowing to me.
And also, I would have to agree with you there, but I'd have to even double down and say that's impossible for the Chinese to technologically be ahead of us. They've hardly even been in the world. I guess you could say a world player for less than about 15 years, because their economic boom occurred somewhere around 2005. And if we look at China GDP, you can see that right around here, 2005 was when their economy actually skyrocketed. So unless if over the course of 15 years, they not only managed to copy everything we made and make it even worse, but somehow surpassed us technologically and were able to way outperform us, that would be highly unlikely. So to be honest with y'all, I'm really baffled, because I don't think the Chinese have an ability to make a craft like that. We'll find out here in the future if that is the case. And also, I don't think that they would continue to send craft to just be shot down like sheep to the slaughter over northwestern North America, because they're not getting anything out of it. Most of these craft, if they are Chinese, aren't even making it into the United States or even into northern Canada, where there's almost nothing and no one living there. So I feel like that is largely out of the picture as well. So I'm really honestly baffled and have no idea where that came from. But with that, I hope we addressed that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next poll says Zelenskyy dismisses the deputy commander of Ukraine's National Guard. What are your thoughts on that? 58% said it must be a corruption issue, 24% said unsure, 10% said he must have been ineffective and dismissed, and 7% said it might have been something else. Now, considering that there's been a lot of corruption, clearing of houses in the Ukrainian government, I would assume that this is along the same lines, and that he must have been discovered to do something inappropriate. But obviously, I don't think we know that for certain yet, so not accusing him of anything specifically. But Enforcer, what is your guess?
I'm going to have to abstain from guessing, because we don't really know a lot of information about it, especially on my end. So I don't really want to make any shots in the dark that will most likely be wrong. I guess I'll more so say we'll wait until an official report comes out from the Ukrainian government as to why that occurred, and then we'll just cover it as news. So with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well, and we are on into the next one.
And the next one says, if the Ukrainians are unable to support the taking of Russian prisoners, what should they do? And this was one of these kind of moral question polls, so there's not really a right answer to it. I guess legally speaking there is, but, let's go over the answers. It looks like 55% said find a way to support them anyway, 31% said take no prisoners, and 14% said unsure and undecided. And on this one, I'm going to go with the 14% that said unsure. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say reread that prompt again real quick, because for some reason...
Reread the line?
Yeah, reread the line.
All right, let's see. If the Ukrainians are unable to support the taking of Russian prisoners, what should they do?
Oh man.
See, it's tricky.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. The realistic answer that you would historically find, and I'm sure no one's going to like this one, is that they get dropsy disease once you take them into your possession, and they just end up, falling over somewhere behind the lines, and no one knows what happened to them. That would be the reality of the situation. However, that isn't really the best outcome to the situation. I know someone's about to say, that's not what you want to do to him. Obviously not, but that's usually historically how it unfolds. I would say, dang, that's a tough one. I don't even know where I would go with a situation like that. Because the real thing because the Geneva Convention, to make this clear, only says that you must provide for prisoners if you can. If you can't, then there's no pressure for them to even be around. So, yeah. And some people are saying cut off their fingers. Now that's just a little wild right there. I wouldn't really do that.
The LSA does not play around.
I mean, they're sitting there pulling off that French move that they were going to do to all of the English archers, is cut off their middle finger, and that's where we get the middle finger from. Supposedly, that's allegedly. But dang, I've got to be honest with you, Matthew. I wouldn't know, because the historic answer, and the one that would probably be accepted in reality, would be to give them dropsy disease. The real life. Well, the moral idea of doing that is like, dang, it's like that's pretty rough to do. So that's going to be my input on it. And with that, we are on to the next poll, because I believe we have just one left.
Yes, we do. And I see a bunch of people getting on both me and you for riding the fence. On polls like that, sometimes it's hard to come to like a definite answer, because, we don't want to support something bad, but at the same time, we like to be realistic. So sometimes I have to go with the unsure option just to play it safe. But anyways, going to the last poll, the question is, after hearing Ukraine's new intelligence report, do you believe anything drastic will happen on February 24th? It looks like 44% said yes, I think something will happen. 17% said no, nothing will happen. 26% said something small is possible. And 12% said unsure and undecided. I'm still going to lean toward the yes category. I would like to know more about Ukraine's intelligence report and what sources they use to determine their conclusion. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that I would fall within the category of 26% that said something small is possible. I feel like on the 24th, the Russians may launch another missile campaign into Ukraine. A large missile attack is most likely inevitable. But beyond that, I don't really think we're going to be seeing any massive offensives occur on that day, because everyone has to remember that over an entire year of war so far, nothing major has happened on any given holiday. The only one where there's an exception is Christmas. And on Christmas, there was a missile attack. So I would say there's most likely nothing going to be happening on the 24th. It's just going to be regarded on a military level as another day of operations, trying to prepare for offensives or conduct offensives that are already underway. So that's what I would view it as. Something small is possible, but I don't think something massive is going to happen where somehow the Russians pull Star Wars and build the second Death Star and then start sending it into Ukraine. I don't think that's going to happen. So with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well, and I think that was all of our polls. Also, that one was highly voted on. It had 1.5 thousand votes. I mean, that was a lot.
Yes.
And so with that, we are now, I believe, on into our questions. We're going to answer 3 of them and then get right back into our Frontline news, starting in the Northeast.
All right. And also, if you have a question and don't want to put in a super chat, you can always tag @EnforcerMatt in your chat message, and I will put it into the spreadsheet. I only have 10 right now, so I'm in desperate need of more questions. But the very first super chat goes to Gregory Kane, who puts in a $50 donation. He says, I don't really see any extended magazines, 30 rounds or more, being used. Are these type mags just not reliable in combat, or what?
And I thank you so much for the support, and an excellent question. The fact is that militaries usually produce things that are fairly cheap, and those bigger magazines, the ones that you're talking about, like the 60-round magazines or the 90-round magazines, can get, if I remember correctly, Matthew, fairly expensive.
You're talking about the 30-round mags get expensive?
No, I'm talking about like a 60-round mag. You know, the ones that like
get,
like quadruple stacked, and then they all feed into a double stack. Like those can get fairly expensive.
Yeah, they can. I don't know what they run exactly, but I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of at least, above $50, I think, per mag.
Let's put in 60-round AK mag for sale, and let's see how much they cost in the United States. So this one is a quad stack 60-round magazine for, it would have originally been $80, but $49.99. So, that's retail price.
That was right on the dot.
Yeah, a retail price for one. And you can see right here a 30-round magazine compared, and we're of course just working off retail prices, and militaries buy this stuff in wholesale, so it's cheaper for them. But a normal 30-round mag is only $12. So if you give a soldier about 4 or 6 of these, they end up costing about the price of one single 60-round magazine. So you can see that cost effectively, it's a lot cheaper to just hand out 30-round magazines and a whole load of them instead of these larger capacity 60-round magazines that cost a whole lot more.
And what they could do is just simply get a Magpul mag link and have 2 linked together, and there you go. It's basically a 60-round mag.
Yeah, that's true. And also, another thing that may be a problem, speaking of that, Matthew, is the fragility of things like that. Like, if you get hit by artillery or you hear one whooshing in, you have to literally dive face first into the ground, those magazines might get damaged a lot easier than the 30-round magazine does. Because the 30-round magazine, these double-stack magazines, are about as simple as you can get. And the simpler a thing is, the harder it is for it to get damaged or break. And 60-round magazines and 90-round magazines may be a whole lot easier to break than the 30-round magazines. So that may be the reason why we're seeing that they're not issuing those kinds of magazines. And also, one has to remember that in a firefight, you never want to encourage your soldiers to fire a massive load of ammo. And if you give them a 60-round magazine, you know, the ape-like part of our heads is going to take over, and we're going to go, let's just unload the whole 60 rounds on them, and then we're blowing through ammunition at a way faster rate, most likely. You're going to have to require your quartermasters and your logisticians to send more ammunition to the front lines. You might start running, depleting your supplies well behind the lines inside of arsenals of their ammunition, and then you start running into ammo shortages, and in the long term, that can be devastating to a military. So that is most likely the couple of reasons why we're not seeing 60-round magazines or 90-round magazines. And anyways, if you need that kind of rate of fire, there's always the squad machine gunner that has a machine gun usually fed by a belt, and that will pretty much take over the role of, I guess you could say, the rate of fire or the amount of fire needed off of a rifleman. So with that, I hope that answers that fairly well, and I thank you so much for support. That was a very original question. We've never had one like that before, and that actually allowed us to venture into some brand new things that we've never looked at before, like the cost of 30 and 60-round magazines. And so with
almost a rabbit hole, actually.
Yeah,
but an interesting one.
Almost a rabbit hole, but that was actually a really, really good one, and I like those kinds of rabbit holes because they fall into the realm of logistics, and then we get to go over why militaries do things certain ways, because, you know, like this is a bit of a rabbit hole. We're going to make this one very short. A lot of people, when they look at the late 1800s United States, look at the United States using these Springfield trapdoors, which I brought up on stream before, these single-shot, trapdoor rifles, and they always go, why were they using these when you had things like the 1876 lever action that had way higher rate of fire and were just as effective, but the rate of fire was that much better. And the reason why we didn't adopt these for military service over the trapdoors, although Native Americans used these by and large against the U.S. Army that they were fighting against, the U.S. Army was using these, is that we were scared that if we gave soldiers these lever actions, they would end up expending their entire company's worth of ammunition within minutes, and then they would be sitting ducks. Or they may start to cost an exorbitant amount for the Army because we're having to produce and buy so much more ammunition that we wouldn't have to if they had a gun with a lower rate of fire. And so that's why we never adopted lever actions, and we kept these trapdoors and then went on to the Krag later on. And also why, even to the present day, if you're in the Army and you're in basic, your drill instructor, your MTI, whatever the hell they're calling him now, they'll come up behind you and they'll smack you in the back of the head if you fire your rifle on full auto, because you're wasting precious ammunition that you cannot waste because it's expensive, and at the end of a firefight, you may be out of ammo before that even comes around. So I hope that explains why certain things are done like that, even in the modern day. And thank you so much once again for support and allowing us to delve into that rabbit hole so well. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
And also, another thing, don't these 60-round mags have kind of like an occasional feeding issue because of the longer spring?
I think they may, but Matthew and me have never really dealt with 60 or 90 round magazines enough to know, so I don't really know about that for certain.
Interesting. Well, maybe one day we'll find out. But anyways, up next we have a $50 super chat from John Webster, who says, for the Bunny Ranch Fund. Come on now, John. He says, you two not only help me stay informed on the war, but also get me through my work day. Keep up the good work, and a live chat question, please.
And thank you for the support, John. And it says this is your first time supporting, and I feel like it is.
I think it is John's first time.
I think
although we'll probably be wrong this time as well.
Yeah, we'll probably be wrong. We're having to take shots in the dark because it's saying it's your first time, and I know that your name's familiar. I know that you've been around in the live chat, but considering it's saying it's your first time super chatting, I don't know if it is. So if it is, thank you so much for supporting us for the first time, and if it isn't, still thank you for the support. Also, I don't think we'll ever go to Bunny Ranch.
No, that's not even a question.
Like I'm trying to say that politely. We will never go to Bunny Ranch. Now I can see people going crazy with that in the live chat. But I still thank you for the support. And I'm glad that we're able to help you get through your workday, because we try and make this stream, and also, I don't know what workday you have. You must have like a night shift like us, and if you do, welcome to the struggle bus, because after about 11 or 12, well, 11:30, things start getting really rough. But still, I'm glad that we were able to get people through their workday. I find it a high honor that somehow I'm able to keep so many of y'all informed on the war, and also at the same time give y'all some laughs and keep y'all entertained. And whenever y'all tell us that, it means a lot to me. It really does. And so I thank you so much once again for the support. I'm glad that we've been able to help you get through your work days. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you for being a Lee Spring Army soldier and helping this channel to keep on running.
All right, and up next in our final one of the first segment, it goes to Hal Rose, who puts in a $49 super chat and says, Stingers are effective air defense. They travel at 2.5 Mach, so you need a supersonic jet to run one out. Outrun one. I'm having a really hard time talking tonight. Please pick a live chat question too.
And that's fine, Mandy. I have a hard time talking sometimes, and we just have to roll with it. But that is a good point to bring up about the Stingers. However, Stingers, from what we know, have a very low G over rate. It's somewhere around, from what we've been told, public numbers, around 10 to 12 Gs of force. And while that seems like a pretty high number, because most aircraft get G'd out around 8 to 9 Gs, at the same time, when an aircraft at a somewhat closer range pulls a very hard turn, they can dodge that Stinger. I think that Stingers are direct impacts, and they're not proxy fused. So that is a good point to bring up. However, those little man pads are still quite a punch packer. I mean, we haven't seen many of them miss their targets so far in the war. We have seen a few, and we have seen some of them that have just really refused to spool up overall, but the Stingers are definitely a vital asset to Ukraine, much like any other man-pad that we see from the West, like the Mistrals from France, and I believe the British at one point had this thing called the blowpipe, and I think they may have moved on from the blowpipe. I don't really know. I think they may have moved to the red eye. I don't know. But anyways, all of those man pads are incredibly effective, especially for an infantry squad to have such a potence in anti-air. And not only that, if they're going up against helicopters, they're practically undodgeable. A Stinger you can't dodge if you're in a helicopter for the large part, unless if you pop every single chaff and flare that your helicopter has, and by then you're a sitting duck for the second shot that squad will be throwing out. So a great point. And I thank you so much for the support and bringing that up, because the Stinger is an effective weapon, and hopefully the Ukrainian government has realized that through data that they've been gathering throughout the war, and hopefully the United States also understands that smaller end support, like the simple Stinger, is incredibly effective as well, and hopefully they'll continue to send those to Ukraine and keep those Stinger units running. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope I addressed that fairly well. And now it's time for us to move on into the Northeast and on into the rest of our frontline analysis for today. So starting off in the Northeast, we're going to be taking a look at the front lines. And I bet y'all are all going to be blown away, because guess what, everyone? Guess what? Past 24 hours, really very little movement. We did see the Russians move forward, however, in this area. They're moving towards Torskay again. As you can see right here, they've moved some forces up in the tree line near Dubrova, and they've also created this small little puncture around Kremenna. But beyond that, nothing has happened here at all. No Man's Land has moved a little bit, but that's just fog of war stuff and trying to make adjustments. So the only thing we've actually seen is this little protrusion right here. So now, moving into the news around Svatove, we saw the 59th Brigade helping to demobilize some Russians and put them out of the war. And this was funny because for some reason, the Russians have created the battle bus. It's literally a supply truck with a 63mm grenade launcher, the automatic grenade launcher, the Vasilek, in the back. And they're firing it off. And when you see them dropping the F1 grenade while the guitar riffs are going strong in the background, the grenade falls right into the cab. That Russian, look at the Russian dude, look at his body language, you can read it from here. The grenade hits and he goes, oh! He's like, uh-oh. So he goes running back into the back of it. It explodes. And we can also see the driver's door, like, opening and closing. Let's take a look at that again. What did happen here?
Oh, he was trying to get some fresh air or something.
Yeah, he was trying to breathe. And so then he closed the door, and he's like, oh, bleed.
Lock the doors, Ivan.
And so now you see him driving off. The guy in the back's probably like, oh, bleed, it stings. And now you see these guys sitting here in a ditch. Let's hear if the mad guitar riffs are still going. Okay, that's not guitar riffs anymore. That's just a rave. But you see them dropping an F1 grenade, and oh my lord! Did you see that one?
Wait, let me see it again.
Oh my lord! They censored it too, so it's not NSFW. But they dropped the grenade any second now, right there. Oh my gosh!
Oh my goodness. Right on the helmet.
Right on the helmet. We now see
That
this
airsoft
guy.
helmet didn't hold up very well as expected.
The Wish.com helmet evaporated once that grenade even hit it. Before it even exploded, the helmet just disintegrated. We can now see this Russian here outside of a small dugout. Oh my lord, I don't even know what that was, but it got him. That's the end of the clip. The 59th Brigade is giving it to the Russians in this area. Like, each one of those clips was impressive. Like, the grenade falling in the back of the truck right on top of the guy's head. It literally thwonked them like a bunk. And then the last one, which I don't even know what that was. Artillery support? I don't even know. But they got them all, like Pokemon. So with that, we're now going to be moving on from the Svatove area and past the Kremenna area. Because while we saw some frontline shifts in this area, mostly favoring the Russians, we didn't get any frontline footage today to show anything from this area. So we're now going to be moving on from Kremenna and further on down into an area that has not had a lot of news reported on it, which is south of Verkno-Kamyanka and in this very small village of Spernay. Spernay is a village that used to be somewhat covered during the initial phases of the Battle of Bakhmut, as it's on its very northern flank, and also during the battles of Severodonetsk and Lysychansk when the Russians were finally making it into the direction of Verkno-Kamyanka, which is a large oil refinery. A small battle occurred here for a while, and a fog of war has persisted over this area due to this ammunition depot that the Ukrainian military once used, and also due to the small village surrounding it. We don't really know, and no one's really known, who's controlled this village for the longest time, but a battle did occur here in between Ukrainian and Russian forces, which was filmed, and it was fairly interesting to say the least. So, let's get into it, and let's see what we got. According to the caption, the Russian side published this video, and we don't really know much more than that. So, once again, it's Russian, so it's probably going to be taking some liberties with the editing, so take it with a grain of salt, but let's get into it. Alright, they're playing some music that they play at a Coca-Cola, like a little hype-up thing. We can see some soldiers here in this tree line. We don't know whose they are. And we see artillery hitting them. And they blurred out the tree line where you can't see anything. We can now see soldiers running around. And there's trash all around, so I feel like this is a Russian position because of how, like, littered the area is with trash. We now see them moving around the trenches. And as they move around the trenches, the blurred parts of the video are making this incredibly entertaining to watch, I must say. It's like reading a barcode. We now see the artillery landing, once again near the trench. And on the trench, it appears that the large bulk of the soldiers are right here in the middle. We now see them looking around in another area that appears onto Spernay village itself, which you can see has largely been destroyed. And you can see the little reservoir of water just north of it there. So I would assume that this is actually being filmed by the Russians. The Russians are holding the town, and they're getting attacked from the northern direction as Ukrainian forces try and move in. but I can't really tell for certain. We can now see some Su-25s flying over. They may be Russian, maybe Ukrainian. We're not really getting a clear picture of who's who in this video. We now see some soldiers moving around. Now let's try and look for armbands here. We didn't see any armbands again. And we can see right there the supply base, which has been destroyed. And we can also see Spernay Village. And this would be the Russian-controlled side of the front. So, interesting. We don't really know much more than that, but that is a video clip made in the Spernay area, and there's not really much more to speak on rather than that. So we're now going to be moving on to our next bit of news from the area, where we also saw a Georgian volunteer standing next to a burnt-out BTR-82. For a while, due to how badly mangled this thing was, I thought it was a BTR-152, and the caption had gotten it wrong. We have seen a couple of these ugly, like, half-track-like things, like hybrid freaking nature vehicles that are absolutely hideous and look like an M3 half-track. I thought it was one of those because it was so badly destroyed, and you can kind of see the similarities. But it is a BTR-82 because it has two more front wheels, and the BTR is only a 6-wheel vehicle. So, it is great to know that this thing was destroyed, and it's also great to know that the lawyers from Disney are currently on their way over to Ukraine to give this Georgian volunteer a cease and desist letter. So, with that, we're now going to be moving on from this little bit of footage, and we can see that whatever hit that BTR made sure to take out half of it, because you can have your BTR and eat it, believe it or not. The old phrase, it's not true. BTRs are edible if you get them. We're now moving behind the lines and into the area of Mykolaiv, where we saw that Tor surface-to-air missile system get destroyed today. This is the one that was reported in the casualty count, and also was hit by a high-precision weapon. And I do have to say, it's quite precise. We can hear the Mission Impossible music playing, and we can see the radar dish spinning around on top of the Tor. It's now moved closer to a tree line, and it's just chilling. The crew inside is probably taking a break from their very difficult job, and we can see the precise munition hit directly alongside the Tor. We're now seeing the Tor from another angle. We can still see it sitting there, chilling. The crew may have already abandoned it. We can see another shell explode as an airburst further away. And now we can see footage being taken directly above. It appears to have been stabilized later on, as it's looking directly down there onto the Tor. And we're waiting. It's not moving. We don't see any activity in there, and the radar has been stowed, so it appears that they may have forced the vehicle to have been destroyed by abandonment. So fairly interesting to see. It looks like it's largely intact. But of course, we can't really tell much from this footage, rather than it was abandoned. We're now going to be moving on from the area of Spernay and Mykolaiv, where we've seen a little bit of activity, quite rare, especially in the southern area of this bulge that the Ukrainians are controlling. Most of the time we see action occurring around Bielorivka, but we're now moving on down into the Bakhmut front. And of course, the news is not as common as it once was, but let's go into the frontline analysis and see what we've got. Over the past 24 hours, Russian forces have been able to make a concerted effort to finally push into the area of Krasnohora, which has been abandoned by Ukrainian forces for several days. The Ukrainians have now set up a defensive position somewhere along the M03 highway, and so they're finally starting to move in and cut the amount of no man's land down, and they're starting to try and make a solidified front line in the direction of Krasnohora parallel to the highway. This is not that surprising, and also you have to keep in mind that the Russians took 1,200 killed today, so for them to just cover some no man's land ground, it must have cost them dearly. Beyond that, it appears that no other movements were made in the Bakhmut front. The Ukrainians are holding them on the T-0504 right outside of Chasiv Yar, just a couple of miles away, and the Russians are making no more ground in the area of Bakhmut. So with that, we're now going to be moving on into the videos that we got here from today, as we saw in Vulhedar, as sluggish advance. A terribly sluggish advance, I must say. And so, this is actually an intercepted phone call, to give it a little bit of extra explanation. This is an intercepted phone call where this Russian soldier is about to tell you all about all the horrors of war, and how incompetent the Russians really are. And so with that, here's the clip.
Ну вообще там тебя-то не обвиняют, ничего, ни в чем.
Да ладно, а я-то при чем? Это наших придурков командиров надо обвинять.
You know what? I'm actually going to do this real quick because some people I just remembered actually are not watching the screen when these play. I'm going to read off the captions at the bottom of the screen, so that way people who are not watching the screen can also listen to what the intercepted phone call is. So let's start from the top, and let me try and do my most female voice as possible.
Uh-oh.
They're not accusing you of anything, are they? What's up with me? It's our moron commanders who must be accused. Oh, they're morons. Sent us to death. Why? They said, you will have mortars covering you, tank covering you, AGS, and as a result, not a single round from a mortar. Vasya started sending them coordinates, and the mortars said, we're changing our position, and started effing moving. They didn't even lay down a shot, no tank either. The AGS said, I'm pulling back. When the shelling started, he dropped his AGS and he ran off. So we started pulling back, we hid. I said, I hear a drone hovering above, and the next thing I hear is a missile. I got up, got stunned, not understanding anything. ... In front of me is Misha on the ground yelling. I come up to him, he shows me his leg, and his front of the body got ripped out with the leg. Next to me is the medic Nimitz. I said, Nimitz, bandage him. I turn around, smoke coming. I thought it was from the missile. Then I look and see intestines. The missile went straight into Max. I come up, only his head and arm remained of him. Evacuation, as always, is 2 kilometers away from us. So why you pulled them yourself? Yes, Mishka limped himself, but Korvavi and Lyosha didn't understand they were wounded. Only here at the position, Korvavi, I think him wounded me. Where? He said in the ass. So I checked it out and he had a giant piece of shrapnel in his ass. Why won't they punish those who didn't send help? They'll get medals for it. For real? You know what they do? Our sappers were clearing a road for the tank, blew up a house with a unit of 15 of our people in it. 7 dead, 8 wounded. They said as if the Ukrainians blew them up. And that's the end of the intercepted phone call.
What's a sapper, by the way?
Sappers are guys whose jobs are to find explosives, like mines and, traps, and blow them up and try and clear the way of any dangerous booby traps. That's their entire job. So what he's saying here is that apparently they rigged a house to explode, and a whole entire platoon entered that house. They then, set the charges to explode. They exploded with everyone in the house, so 7 of them got killed and 8 of them got wounded, and then they claimed that the Ukrainians killed them instead of the Russians' incompetence killing them.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's the story. That's what a sapper is too. So with that,
Like Aaron Lowe said in the chat. Do you see that? I can't repeat it.
Oh yeah, yeah, it really is like
he's right.
So with that, we're now going to be moving on from that. If y'all enjoyed me reading off the intercepted phone call, let me know. In fact, make a poll for that, Matthew, once this one's out. Would y'all rather have intercepted phone calls read or just let them play? Because, some people say they can't understand them because they're not looking at the screen. They're just listening to the show. So let's see what people enjoy more, and we'll just change that from here forward. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from the Vulhedar area, where we heard that some Russian sappers ended up making some Russian soldiers really sappy-like. And we're now moving on down into Bakhmut and the center itself, where we saw the Ukrainians destroying an occupied house containing some of those foreign visitors from Russia. Honey, the Russians are here. Let's give them a welcome. Okay. It starts blowing away the house down the street. We see the BMP backing up, but they are really giving it to that house. They are ripping that thing apart, even taking down some of the heating pipes that we've seen around most villages. So with that, that's the end of the clip. But really nice to see that the Ukrainians are giving it to the Russians point blank. We're now moving on into the next clip from the center, where we also saw an Su-25 get shot down over Bakhmut. From what we can really tell, this occurred yesterday, but the footage was released today, so it's being included in today's news. But here's the video of an Su-25 being hit by a Stinger and then going down. And you see the drone flying over the town, looking into the distance, and we are looking for the Su-25. I can't really see it. Let's see here. I didn't see it. Maybe it was what was already smoking on the ground, but according to the caption, the air target in Su-25s was destroyed with a manpad. It went up in smoke, and they never saw the pilot eject. So the pilot went down with the aircraft outside of Bachmut. And that was the Su-25 that we saw in the capture report the other day. We're now moving on to the next clip from Bachmut, where we saw the Freedom of Russia Legion declare that they are holding the city, and the Ukrainians are still in control of it, and the Freedom of Russia Legion will continue to fight alongside the Ukrainians and continue to hold that city. So let's listen to this declaration and see what they got to say. And also, considering the results of this poll, I'm going to let him play in the background a little quieter, and I'll just read over what he's saying, considering that 75% of y'all liked me reading off the intercepted phone call as compared to not. So here we go. February 11th, 2023, Bakhmut Fortress. Recently, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation seized the initiative from the Wagner unit, and instead of Prigozhin began to recruit prisoners sitting on their toilets. In connection with this, the flow of prisoners from Wagner is gone. Consequently, his convicts at the front died out. The so-called mobilized are in no hurry to sell their lives for Putin's values. Precisely because of PMC Wagner losing their replenishment. We see a replacement at the front with the troops of the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation. Therefore, in recent days, the enemy in Bakhmut has had no success. The Bakhmut fortress is holding out. Slava Ukraini, freedom for Russia. That's the end of the clip, and as we can see, according to the Freedom of Russia Legion, that is really fighting heavily within the city still holds, and the Ukrainian flag is still flying. So with that, that's the end of that clip. So much for everyone saying that Bakhmut was going to collapse within days last week, and we're now going to be moving behind the lines at Bakhmut, where we saw another one of those beautiful, incredibly beautiful Panzerhaubitze 2000s firing their shells into the Bakhmut area. Here's the clip. I don't know what music that is. We're going to mute that, though, because we got copyrighted last time we played any music. But we can see the Panzerhaubitze reloading, firing again. And here in a second, after it fires a third round, the video ends. 3 rounds in 20 seconds. What a rate of fire for an SPG of that size. And great to know that the Germans did provide these things eventually and that the Ukrainians have been using them. They are very effective, very efficient, and very precise with a large variety of ammunition that they can use, and also an incredibly high rate of fire. This is one of the best, I guess you could say, SPGs there is, except for the wheeled SPGs. I still do believe that the Caesar is the best of the best, and eventually the Archer will replace the Caesar as the best of the wheeled SPGs. But for a tracked SPG, the Panzerhaubitze 2000 has to be the best, and one of the most impressive to look at as well. The thing has a presence. Like, look at this. Look at the side profile on this thing when I pull one up. And tell me you wouldn't be scared of knowing that that thing was downrange firing at you. It looks terrible.
It's really good design, I gotta say.
Oh yeah, the Germans, they know how to make a good tank. And it looks like it was actually based off of a Leopard 1 hull. Let me check. Let me see how many wheels or what the wheelbase looks like on a Leopard 1. Let's see, it has 7 wheels there, and a Leopard 1 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wheels there. Let me go back and look at the Panzerhaubitze 2000's rear. No, I don't know. If it is a Leopard 1 hull, it's been heavily modified because it looks like the engine is actually in front of the turret instead of behind it. But regardless, getting past the side notes here, an impressive SPG. And great to know that they're still operating for the Ukrainians, and the Ukrainians are giving the Russians hell with them. We're now going to be moving on from that little clip and on into the southern flank of the battle near Klishchiivka, where we saw the Ukrainians returning the CS gas that the Russians dropped on them in kind today with more CS gas. This is starting to confirm to me that we may be misreading the rules of war, because considering that the Russians use CS gas and the Ukrainians are immediately using CS gas now as well, that may show that this isn't really as bad as we thought it was, because we've rarely ever seen the Ukrainians use incendiary munitions. I believe we've only seen them use them twice during the war, while the Russians use them constantly. And now we can see that the Ukrainians, just within days of us seeing the CS gas from the Russians, are now using CS gas on the Russians. So here's the clip. You see them dropping the nade. Oh, we're gonna mute that. Oh, no, mute. We can see it fall into this little like compound thing down there in between the train tracks. We can see it starting to smoke. And it's starting to get all smoky down there. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, hang on. Look, you can see most of the gas coming out on the other side of the railroad tracks in this ditch.
Oh, you sure can.
Yeah, so it's smoking them out, actually. Some Russians are down there going, I bleed. Man, this is like Lucky Strike, bleed.
They're probably used to that, the way they smoke. Oh, no, they're not used to it.
No,
Too much
they're
smoke.
out. They're running. Bleed. So that's the end of the video. Courtesy of the 109th for dropping the CS gas on them. And we can see that they don't really like it being used against them. And we're probably going to start seeing that gas masks will be issued on both sides in the event of a CS gas bomblet being dropped on top of you. You can put on the mask and deal with it if you need to. So with that's the end of the clip. Very interesting to see. And we're now moving entirely out of the Bakhmut area. The Bakhmut area used to have almost all of the news from any given day in it, and we would hang out here for an incredibly long amount of time. But as the time keeps going by, the Battle of Bakhmut is getting a little less and less ferocious in terms of video footage, and we're starting to see the video footage shift elsewhere, more towards the north and south. But as we move on behind the lines near the area of Stepnivka, we saw the Ukrainians shooting some Tachkas at the Russians. We haven't seen the Tachkas in use for a while from either side, and so here's the clip. Chad music. We're going to have to mute that. That's copyrighted. We can see both of them priming their missiles to fire, setting them up. And any second now, there goes the first one, there goes the second one, and the Tachkas are on their way. And there they go, streaking into the sky. The hopes of a supply base being blown up carried on each one of them. I see in the clip, but interesting to see that they're once again pulling out their Tachka forces and using them to support the Ukrainian lines. We're now going to be moving on out of this area, and further on behind the lines, where we saw at night, and this is most likely from yesterday as well, but the footage came out today, an S-300 firing its missile to shoot down a Shahed that was flying into Ukrainian airspace. Here's the clip, and this was really cool to see at night. It's a shooting star! Make a wish! Man, look at that thing. It literally looks like a comet. And it
looks like a cylindrical object with propulsion.
Yeah, no visible propulsion I can see. But with that's the end of that clip right there. And look at that streak, Matthew. Like, there was little sparks and stuff in it. It literally looked like a little shooting star going through the sky. And then just poof in the distance, and it got the Shahed. That's the end of the clip.
Nice.
And nice to see. They got it. Nice. Nice. With that, we're now moving on into the frontline news again, not behind the lines, but actually on the lines near the area of Avdiivka, where we saw some Ukrainian soldiers on patrol. And this picture was pretty cool, because look, it's Ghost from Call of Duty Ghost. I gotta tell you, man.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty sick, actually.
Yeah, that game has had more of an impact on balaclavas than anything else in history. Like, every balaclava in the world now has, like, that Ghost paint job on it. Like, and you never saw that before that game.
Yeah, you got to give it to Call of Duty. Some people hate it and some people love it, but it has had a pretty profound impact on people joining the military.
Well, you know what they say, Matthew. Every military game out there ever is just a recruitment ad. But still, neat to see that they're on patrol, and hopefully they'll find some Russians and give it to them while they're walking around. We're now moving on into our next bit of news from here, where we can see the Mobiks on the other side of the line fighting for the Russians, speaking of the terrible conditions they're dealing with and having to deal with suicidal frontal charges. So with that, let's watch the video. And once again, same as last time, I'm going to lower the audio and then read it off. Hello, we are the 1231st Regiment from Tatarstan. We were transferred to the command of the DPR. The local authorities don't care about us. We are here like consumables. Their slogan is, "We fight to the last soldier, and then they'll send new ones." Upon coming here, we were located into different units, 6 people at a time. Took away our vehicles and humanitarian aid. On the 5th of February, we were each sent to an assault without any preparation. Each of us had 4 magazines. I'm not even talking about medicines. We were shot at from tanks, artillery, AGS, machine guns. But our support fired 3 to 4 times and said that that was their limit and they couldn't do any more. To the left and right were enemies with night vision. They adjusted fire at us. 2 battalions were already killed there, and there's no way of getting them out of there now. Later, we found out from the locals they've been unable to take this position for a very long time. This is not fake. We are not in capture. We just want to tell you the information that's hidden from you. We are the 4th reinforcements who came here, and no one returned from there yet, only as 200s or 300s. We saw mass graves of people no one's picking up. They've been there for half a year. Help us in our difficult situation. Hear our outcry. Our wives already appealed to the Kazan prosecution office and received an answer. DPR is not Russia. DPR is a separate thing and we can't do anything. Only send your appeal to the DPR prosecution. Aww. They said the mobilized will be holding the 3rd line of defense, but we're sent into assaults. Local shared secret that we are the 4th reinforcements. For the other guys, we haven't seen a regiment commander. We are commanded by simple locals. They're given criminal orders. We want to be commanded by the officers who managed us in Kazan. From Russia, блядь. We do not refuse to fight. And that right there is their death sentence. But carrying out suicide orders and playing on someone else's field is impossible. We want our own baseball field. Taking a height defended by mortars and tanks with only assault rifles is unreal, man. Especially at night. There is no support. Only criminal orders for slaughter. It's like I'm fighting for the Russians or something. But with that, that's the end of that little clip, and giving you an equal look at the other side of the lines with what the Russians are dealing with. And they're crying and whining because nobody actually cares about them, and they don't really matter. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day if thousands of them die, because they'll just get replaced. Man, it almost feels like my time at Publix. Anyways, we're moving on out of the Avdiivka area and on into the southern front, because not much happened in Donetsk beyond that, beyond some Russians whining about them being Russians and fighting for Russia. And so we're now moving on into the southern front, where we've had a very wide spread of news, all the way from Vasilivka to Staromayorsk, but we didn't get anything from Vulhedar today, which is fairly interesting. So we're now moving into Staromayorsk, and we saw that the Ukrainians dropped a guided grenade, the first of the kind we've ever seen, onto a Russian tank. We can hear some epic music playing. We can see the drone flying over the tank. We can see them drop the bomblet, and it starts guiding itself right onto the turret, and right on top. As seen in the clip, fairly impressive to see that they were able to make a guided bomb. I don't know how they did it, but impressive nonetheless. We're now going to be moving on into our next bit of footage from the southern front, where we also saw near Huilopol a Russian ATGM Lada. Y'all remember those ATVs that the Ukrainians would make that would have the, Stugna or something similar on top of it? Well, the Russians tried to do the same thing, but due to their lack of money or their lack of ingenuity, they just took a normal Lada that was supposed to go to a family of a dead soldier, and they put a Cornets on top of it, and they're using it around the Zaporizhia area. It is ghetto as hell. I've never seen anything this stupid looking in my life, because they literally just set up a wooden plank on the back for you to stand on to aim this with. When you see the Cornets firing in the heavy metal plane, because having a cheap-ass Lada fire your Cornets is badass. We now see the missile flying on its way towards what I'm supposing is maybe a Ukrainian force. We can't really tell. It explodes in the distance. Now we're going back to the Lada. That just looks so stupid. And now he hops back in the Lada and he just drives off. I guess he's just the guy who goes around. Like he's your little odds and ends fixer-upper guy. You know, like your plumber. Oh crap, we need the Cornets. Just call up Mr. Lada. Beep beep, I'm here. And then he fires off a Cornets for you. Stupid. I don't even know much to say about that. That's just dumb looking. We're now going to be moving on into our next bit of news near Cherivny, where we saw some Russian trenches getting hit and some Russian soldiers having a nap. We're going to mute that. But we can see the artillery hitting right onto the trench. Russian soldiers crying and whining and stuff, you know. And now we can see the camera zooming in, and we can see some Russians are taking naps. Don't interrupt them. They're sleeping well.
Does this mean they're not coming on then?
It means they're not coming on then, Governor. Sleep well. And with that, that's the end of the clip. As you can see, the artillery strike was incredibly effective. A trench clearer. A trench sleeper, perhaps. A trench sleeper. See what I did there? Like a trench sweeper.
Oh.
But anyways, moving on into Rikov, we also saw something really cool today. One of our viewers actually asked, what's better, a T-64 BV, like this one right here, and I'll find you all a picture of it. Is this better than a T-72 B3? I believe it is specifically the 2017 upgraded version of the T-72 B3, which we have a picture of right here. So what I said earlier on is that these two are probably on par with each other when they meet on the field, and they have some differences, but they all equal out and create a very comparable tank amongst each other, the T-64BV and the T-72B3. Believe it or not, the T-64BV didn't just take on a T-72B3, it took on a T-90A and destroyed it. So this tank right here, you know, one of Russia's supposedly best of the best. There's nothing like it out there on the field. The Ukrainians wiped it out with one shot, and we got the video of that today. So let me take y'all to Twitter, where this clip is, and show it to y'all. Alright. Also, we're going to have to mute that. We can see the Ukrainian T-64BV moving up there at the bottom of the screen. And further on up the road is the T-90A, and I'll see if they point that out here in a second. And you see the tank continuing to move forward. We now see it coming to a stop, firing, and that T-90A all the way down there got hit and in one shot went up like a Roman candle. Of course, the crew was lost immediately. The tank was hit with the crew inside, and the T-90A may as well have been none the wiser that it was about to get blown away by this T-64BV. So there you have it. There's the answer to the question we had last night in the Super Chat. Which one's better, the T-64BV or the T-72BV? The T-72B3. The T-64 beats out the T-72 and the T-90, as we can see right here in this one-on-one duel. And we can see that the T-64 threw 2 shots and now a 3rd shot into the T-90 to make sure to finish it off, because while the first shot most likely killed it, you want to make sure it's good and well cooked, so you throw a couple of more shots into the tank to make sure that it'll never be recovered. And we can now see them firing into the buildings nearby as well. Man, one hell of a crew right there, Matthew. They rolled up to the lines, wiped out a T-90A, which is one of Russia's best tanks in the field, and then sat there and went, all right, infantry support, let's go. And then just started shooting into the buildings, too, to take care of the infantry. This thing was a one-all fix-all right here. Impressive.
Boss level, I tell you. Boss level.
Boss level. Boss level. So with that, that's the end of the clip. Impressive to see, and wonderful to know that the T-64BVs that the Ukrainians have, although most people think they're old, they can largely outperform anything the Russians have, even a T-90A. With that, we're now moving on into our last bit of news from the southern front in Vasilivka, where we saw a Ukrainian drone dropping a grenade onto a Russian trench. And this was quite the network of trenches. We can see that their BMP-1 has already been disabled, but it's still hanging out here, probably as a stationary turret. We can see the grenade being dropped. The Russians somehow sense the grenades dropping, the spidey senses are tingling here, and they all start running, funnily enough, out of the trenches and into the open. A smart move, because the trenches are the death traps. We can see the bomb actually exploded all the way down here. It didn't even hit any of them, but it sent every single Russian in this trench work running for their lives. Also, I love how the trenches are once again dug in a perfectly straight line, like they were working off of a grid or something here. But hey, you know, whatever works, works, and it's good to know that the Russians got freaked out by this bomblet. With that, last scene in that clip, and we have one bit of news moving out of the southern front, because as far as front line changes went down here, we didn't see anything, and I'll, of course, back over the past 24 hours and fast forward it, see no changes. But moving on into Kherson, we did see one more video of the Ukrainians destroying even more SPGs here, and it appears that this is where the Russians send SPGs to die. So here's the clip. Chad music once again. Chad music on everything. The answer is Chad music. We can now see the kamikaze drone flying in, giving us an epileptic fit, and then hitting the Mista, knocking it out. Look at it go. Jaga Jaga!
Igor!
Igor! We can now see it smoldering, cooking, and burning. I like mine with Mistas well done. That's the end of the clip, and that's all we have to report from the Kherson area, but they lost another $3 million SPG. We're now moving on out of Kherson, out of the southern front, out of Bakhmut, out of the northeast, the location unknowns, and the Yukon, and we're moving all the way back up to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on day 354 of the news of the war in Ukraine. And so without further ado, here is the speech. Let me make sure to get it set up with the audio at max, and here we go. Oh, we get it right there.
Українці, українки, сьогодні я почав день з відвідування посольства Туреччини, зі співчуттів турецькому народу через страшні землетруси. Станом на зараз відомо про понад 21 тисячу загиблих. Розбір завалів продовжується і, на жаль, число втрачених життів може бути більше. Команда ДСНС України працює в Туреччині зараз, допомагаючи з розбором завалів. Посольство України з'ясовує всю інформацію про українців, які могли опинитись в зоні лиха. Ми розділяємо біль турецького народу і бажаємо якнайшвидшого одужання усім, хто постраждав. Вдень я провів кілька нарад з представниками сектору оборони і правоохоронних органів. Тематика, можна сказати, спільна для цих нарад. Це посилення державних інституцій України, захист інституцій від будь-яких спроб ззовні чи зсередини зменшити їхню дієздатність та ефективність. Це стосується різних напрямків і кадрової політики, і взаємодії між державними інституціями, і чистоти того, як працюють державні структури. Приміром, на нараді з правоохоронцями була доповідь щодо виявлення і блокування тіньових схем на митниці. Ви бачили протягом цих тижнів відповідні слідчі дії затримання. Служба безпеки України, Державне бюро розслідування, Офіс Генерального прокурора мають значні результати у захисті нашої держави від тих, хто працював на державу-агресора. Будуть і відповідні кроки РНБО, що продовжують нашу лінію захисту держави. І вся ця діяльність, не лише ті чи інші епізоди і ті чи інші кримінальні провадження, не лише те, що стосується певних осіб, але й те, що стосується інституцій. Держава продовжить модернізацію самих інституцій, процесів у них, процедур. Чистота в роботі державних структур має гарантуватись не лише тим, що залежить від самих людей, але й тим, який функціонал прозорості та підзвітності створений. Я хочу подякувати усім працівникам нашого сектору оборони і безпеки та усім правоохоронцям, хто дбає про державу, хто зміцнює державу своєю роботою і хто не лише пропонує, як зміцнити українські інституції, але й дає результат у такому зміцненні. Звичайно, хочу сьогодні подякувати за результат і нашим захисникам неба за ще одну сторінку успіху в захисті нашої держави від іранських дронів, які застосовує Росія. Особливо відзначу бійців 160-ї Одеської, 208-ї Херсонської, зенітних ракетних бригад та 302-го Харківського зенітного ракетного полку. Дякую вам, хлопці. Дякую всім нашим воїнам за чергові потрібні Україні результати у стійкості та відбитті ворожих штурмів на Донеччині, Бахмутський напрямок, Авдіївський та інші напрямки. Дякую воїнам 80-ї окремої гірсько-штурмової бригади, 5-го окремого штурмового полку, воїнам-прикордонникам, нацгвардійцям, які разом з усіма воюють на Донеччині. Аеророзвідка і розвідка, авіація, мінометники, артилеристи, піхота, танкісти і кожен і кожна, хто допомагає. Дякую вам усім. Слава усім, хто робить Україну сильнішою, ворога слабшим, а нашу перемогу ближчою. Слава Україні!
And with that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on day 354 of the news of war in Ukraine. And that wraps up our news segment for the night and is about to move us on into our question segment, where we're going to address all of the super chats that have been sent in tonight, all of the live chats, and all the polls that we've run in between the last question segment and this one that we haven't gotten to yet. But before we do, I've got to thank everyone who was here for the news for watching. And if y'all want to, y'all can, of course, subscribe. The button's always there. Make sure to hit the bell button as well when you subscribe, so that way you can be notified whenever these streams run. And even then, it might not tell you. I don't know why. But still, thank you all so much once again for watching. Also, make sure to hit the like button, because we are up to 1776 likes. That is the year the United States signed the Declaration of Independence. And now we're into 1781, where the Siege of Yorktown would be won. But anyways, make sure to hit the like button and get us on through the years and on up into the years 3000 in terms of likes. And of course, I thank you all so much for watching once again. And so with that, I'm going to let Matthew take us on into the polls, so that way we can cover all the polls and then get right on into the questions. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and for our final segment of questions, we have 3 more polls to address. And the very first one says, Jets to Ukraine decision is not easy, says Poland. And my question is, why are so many nations hesitant about sending jets to Ukraine? It looks like 46% said because of offset concerns, 29% said jets are a limited resource, 20% said unsure, and 5% said jets won't be useful to Ukraine. Now, I think jets will certainly be useful to Ukraine if they can actually get them in their hands. I would probably go with an offset concern, and my second choice would be limited resource, because I believe we just gave them long-range missiles which have the capability of hitting Russia where it really hurts, and that's what I've been seeing in the chat. Some people saying is that the jets have the capability to hit Moscow, which is why the West is hesitant to send them to Ukraine. But I doubt that's the actual reason. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that reason doesn't really make a lot of sense, because the HIMARS, when given the proper kind of munitions, can attack practically anything anywhere for Ukraine's purposes. And, you know, we haven't sent them for one reason or another, and really largely for that reason. However, we could give those weapons to Ukraine like we've already given them the HIMARS and tell them you cannot use them to attack Russia directly, and they followed that fairly well. So why in the world would we go through the same thing with the aircraft when we've already done this before with the HIMARS and seen that they are capable of following through their word and not doing what they've agreed not to do? So I feel like that is largely just the U.S. once again, or the Western world at large, trying to come up with a reason not to send the vehicles, not to send the aircraft, because we also saw them do that with the Abrams, saying that the Abrams could not be supported logistically. There's no bridges that could, you know, support the weight of an Abrams, and then we send them 30. So I would say that is all idle talk. We could send them perfectly fine and nothing would happen. The Russians wouldn't do anything, and the Ukrainians could operate them just fine. Anyways, a lot of the the Soviet-era aircraft the Ukrainians operate right now could also attack into Russia itself, but we don't see them doing that with those either. So with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one says, as reported yesterday, Russia could take 2 years to capture Ukraine regions, says Prigozhin. What are your thoughts? 47% said he's accepted low standards, 39% said that he thinks that is perfectly fine, and 14% said unsure. And like we were saying yesterday after we watched him say that, I really cannot tell if he thinks that's acceptable or not. I'm sure he knows that he has a very incompetent fighting force, but I think he might have accepted the fact that that's perfectly fine. which is obviously a very low standard to meet. But Enforcer, what say you?
I think that's a combination of the two. I think it's a low standard, and also he thinks it's acceptable. Because the way he stated it was almost like it was just a matter of fact, like that was what they had been planning on the whole time. And that means that he may consider that acceptable, and also he may consider that acceptable because of the low quality of Russian soldiers, and also the incompetence of Russian command. So I would have to say there would be a combination of the two, in my opinion. So with that, I hope I answered that poll fairly well, and we are on into the next one.
All right. And the third one says, if the UFOs shot down over Alaska and Canada are determined to be from China, how should the USA respond? 47%, which is the most popular option, said place extreme sanctions on China. 19% said ignore the incursions and be diplomatic. 19% said send our US drones to China. And 14% said unsure and undecided. One option I would honestly rule out for myself is ignore the incursions. I don't think you can ignore things that severe and just let them get away with it, because that sets a very, very bad standard for what other countries are allowed to do in our own airspace. So I wouldn't go with that. I would probably say, honestly, place extreme sanctions on China would probably be the one I'd go with, but I want to lean towards sending drones back to China, kind of like a tit for tat scenario. But that would obviously escalate things extremely fast and could lead to World War very rapidly. So that's very risky. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say impose heavy sanctions on them if they're confirmed to be Chinese aircraft, or begin to lobby for the Chinese to be represented less and less in world forums and begin to be diplomatically isolated. I would also try and see about moving our, I guess you could say, our imports from the Chinese to other countries slowly over time. That would most likely be a I would say maybe a decade's process to do. You could probably do it under a two-term presidency if you wanted to, but move our industrial base of goods that we receive from China to other countries like Vietnam or Thailand, or maybe even South American countries. Or we could start trying to move them if we're, if those companies are fairly adamant on not wanting to return to the United States, like some of them are, into other countries like Central American countries, maybe like Mexico, although there's a lot to be done in Mexico before they can really support large amounts of industry fairly well that aren't getting skimmed or like absolutely robbed by the cartel for operating there. But I would most likely impose heavy sanctions on the Chinese and start moving American goods, the production of American goods, into other countries slowly over time, and ensure that companies are not incentivized to open up factories and produce their goods inside of China. So with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And believe it or not, that was our last poll. So we're moving on to our Super Chat questions. And up first, we have a $40 donation from Eric Bouchos, who says, nothing to report. You can take an interesting question from the chat.
And thank you so much, Monsieur Bouchot. And thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. It's sad to hear that you do not have anything interesting to say. I'm sure that you have plenty, it's just that you can't think of it. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, let's go and take a live chat question, because I'm fairly interested in hearing one right now for absolutely no reason.
All right. So the first live chat question that we have, sponsored by Eric Bouchot, goes to Packetang, who says, are any directed energy weapons, it could be light, microwave sound, etc., known to have been used by either the Ukrainians or the orcs in this war?
Can you reread that one again real quick? Because I think I mixed up the deal when I heard microwave. Are they talking about like a Havana syndrome kind of thing?
I think directed energy weapons. So, like that microwave weapon that they were testing for the army to like cause soldiers to feel like they're heating up in the battlefield.
I would say that those are probably too fragile and too easy to destroy, and also fairly expensive as well. And also, they don't actually kill soldiers, because if you make them feel warm, they just run a little bit to the left and right and disperse, and then they start firing back, and then it doesn't really do much. So I would say an interesting idea, neat concept. I feel like it's more so for crowd control than military application, but still is possible. It's just that I don't think it's the most likely option for it. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you for helping this channel to keep on running.
All right. And up next, we have a $34. Oh, and also, by the way, I saw Jet Fusion say light brown noise, and I just realized that Packetang said sound, etc. So that would also qualify an LRAD system as well. So like sound disruption like that. I'd be shocked if it hasn't been used somewhere, although it's typically used for crowd control and not for military purposes.
I have a feeling it's probably not been used at all in Ukraine because, both countries never had that, I believe, going into the war. And on top of that, I don't really see how you could use that well. I don't know the range of those systems. I feel like it's not that far, especially for firefight distances. And you would really have to crank that thing up to be able to reach the range. And on top of that, they would probably see it getting moved in. It would be very visible. And they would probably destroy it before it even got used. But still, an interesting idea, I would say. So with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you once again for support and bringing that up.
All right. And the next one goes to Gary Robbins, who puts in a $34.49 donation and says it's time for a Mountain Dew break. This is for a 36 pack of traditional Mountain Dew. Or do you prefer a different type of Mountain Dew or another soft drink? You have the question to the live chat.
And thank you for the support, Gary. Now, that is an interesting question. Do I like Mountain Dew? Kind of. Do I like sodas? Not for the large part. I usually drink these three things: water, milk, or sweet tea. If it's not of that trinity of drinks, I usually don't drink it. It's very rare for me to, and that's also because I get incredibly sick. Like, I get violently sick feeling from eating a lot of sugar. So a lot of my diet is salty foods, or more or incredibly mild sweet foods, and sodas. If I try and drink a whole soda, it feels like I'm dying. I don't know what it is. Of course, some people are going to say, are you diabetic? No, I'm not diabetic. It's just that for some reason, I have a very, very low tolerance for very sweet things. I can't handle a lot of it. In fact, it's such a low tolerance, whenever I eat, like, birthday cakes, I have to scrape, like, all the icing off of it and just, like, eat the bread with the little bit of icing that divides the layers, because that's enough sugar for me to feel like I've had way too much. So with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. I would probably put that towards a massive amount of sweet tea, if anything, or milk. And so I thank you so much once again for the support. And did y'all ever hear about that experiment where they found out that a rat can dissolve in Mountain Dew within 34 days?
No, I never heard about that.
Yeah, and that was, I believe that was because of a lawsuit that someone sued Mountain Dew saying that there was a rat in their soda. And the company, when they were sued and were brought to court, said that's not true because that bottle had been shipped out of our company about 2 months before that, and a rat dissolves in Mountain Dew within 34 days. And I was like, why the hell did they need to know that? Like, who in the world in their company just had that stat out there? Like, oh man, we're being sued because a rat was in our soda. Technically not, sir, because according to the chart, rats dissolve in 34 days. But anyways. Still, I thank you so much for the support, Gary. I hope that does address that fairly well. Not hating on Mountain Dew. I'm sure any soda will do that to a rat within 34 days. But I would say that if out of all of the sodas I've drank before, Mountain Dew is probably one of the better ones. Sprite is also really good. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support, Gary, in helping this channel to keep on rolling.
I got to say for myself, I'm personally a huge fan of sweet tea and Sprite. Sprite is definitely my favorite, but not a whole bunch because the sugar is really not good for you. But anyways, Gary did want a live chat question, and this one is going to go to iSpy, who says, why are no stealth aircraft covertly being used at night?
No stealth aircraft. If you're talking about in this current war, it's because both sides don't really possess stealth aircraft that are usable. Supposedly, there's Su-57s that are now operating somewhere in Ukraine, but they're being used to fire off of cruise and ballistic missiles, hypothetically. So there's that. But beyond that, no one really has stealth aircraft that are usable, and that's why you don't see them getting used at all, is because they don't really exist. And also, on top of that, stealth technology allows for those aircraft to operate as good in the daytime as they would at night. So, they're an all-weather, all-day aircraft. So with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. And I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And no, Philip fixes, not Sprite and sweet tea together. Definitely separate. Never mix the two. I can only imagine what that tastes like. And also, I see all the Northerners getting upset like I expected. What is a sweet tea? Oh, well, you get a big bag of sugar, at least 1 pound, and you pour it into a quart size like container and mix it with water and tea. And there you go. You have Southern sweet tea.
Yes, and it's great. It's a better way to have tea, in my opinion. Well, probably because I grew up on it. So yeah, I mean, like, you know, that's what it is, a sweet tea. Oh man, wait until we blow the Northerners' minds with things like hush puppies and grits, because I'm sure everyone's going, what the hell's a hush puppy? I'm not even going to go through the story. No one really knows where this thing got its name. It's like a fried ball of bread. We're not looking for shopping. We're looking for pictures. They're these. They're pretty good. And you see a dog right here with hush puppy below it. It's a registered trademark, apparently, from the UK. Huh, okay. All
Is this a dog company or like a food company?
I don't know.
I'm assuming it's a dog company, hopefully.
I would go to the website, but yeah, that's a rabbit hole. And then, let's see, hush puppies and then grits. Grits are, if I remember correctly, it's pretty much just ground up corn.
It's actually a grit.
Wait, hang on. Let me go down here. Stone ground. Yeah. It's corn that is grinded in, I guess you could say, like millstones, and it creates this weird gritty like substance that you can cook up out of the corn meal, pretty much, and you can create grits, which are okay. I would say it's honestly like one of the lower rated Southern foods you can get. There's a lot of better tasting stuff out there, but grits are not that bad. Another thing that you could find here in the South are fried catfish. I'm sure that everyone has a version of fried fish, like fish and chips, that's usually made out of cod, but down here in the South, catfish is like the fish to go to for most people, and it's delicious, especially when you put lemon on it. Then it becomes way too good for its own good, and it becomes something that countries would probably fight and die over like oil, but this stuff's great. Also, who the hell cooked this? This is a crime.
Oh, what the hell?
That looks terrible,
Deep fried
man.
Mississippi catfish, man. That stuff looks like it's been through Chernobyl and back, and then put in the deep fryer.
Dude, this thing looks like that meme I showed you about sea monkeys, where it's like, I'm going blind. Like, I can't see. It looks like they were living like that before they got fried. Holy moly.
Who's going to eat this fish with like the fin and everything
Yeah,
still
never
on
serve
it?
a
Like,
cat-
obviously you're going to cut it off, but that's nasty.
Never serve a catfish like that to anyone. Apparently this was on USA Today. USA Today needs to learn that fried catfish looks like this, not like that. That's just ugly and unappealing. And let's see, what other Southern foods do we have, Matthew, that people from the North would find interesting?
Biscuits?
Yeah, biscuits. In Britain, biscuits are like cookies. We call them cookies, but we have these biscuits. Now, the round ones here, I never really find biscuits that are round. I know there's a lot of them out there, but when we make biscuits in our house, they end up being square. So they're like little square biscuits. Let me see if I can find one that looks like that. Dude, everyone makes their biscuits round. What an inefficient way to make them, because you have to put them like as individual little biscuits on like a baking sheet like this and then cook them, which is a very inefficient use of space. You can make a giant like biscuit bread and then slice it up into pieces and then bake it, and then you get a whole entire like baking tray full of square biscuits, and it's a lot more efficient to do. You get a lot more biscuits out of it. Like these, kind of. Sort of. They kind of look like that. Let's see.
Also, fried okra. Let's see, fried green tomatoes, deep fried gator, collard greens, a cornbread. Looking for other ideas here. Let's see.
And these are fried green
Blue
tomatoes.
crab, mustard green. Mustard green. What the hell is that? Barbecue, fried taters, potato cakes, crawdad.
Biscuits and
That's
gravy.
all I see so far. Oh yeah, that's very good. But cholesterol gone mad.
Oh, wait a minute. Chicken and rice. I forgot about chicken and rice. Chicken and rice is a pretty good one, too. These are a little too frou-frou, though. Like, I'm talking about, like, classic chicken and rice that's literally just chicken and rice, and the rice is cooked inside of, like, the chicken's water. Like, when you, like, boil the chicken, you then take that water and you cook the rice and the chicken in it at the same time. It's delicious. Like, you wouldn't believe how good that gets. And then there is chicken and dumplings, which is also a really good one as well. And I'll put that in. It kind of looks like this. Some of these are just way too overdone. Like, this is not chicken and dumplings. This is some fake bull at this point. But this is what chicken and dumplings largely looks like when you get it at home. Really delicious. Everything's great. I mean, the South has the best food in the world, I think. There's no way you could beat Southern food. I've never gone anywhere and really been wowed by food like I have in the South. But then again, that's because I've grown up here. I was raised on these dishes, so they're kind of like mine now. You know, I kind of like, my palate pretty much owns these. So this is what I find to be the best out there. But if y'all want to share anything with us that y'all enjoy that is not from the South and is from another part of the world or another part of the United States, share it with us because we're always interested in hearing some. So with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope we addressed that fairly well. That was a pretty long rabbit hole, though, about food. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $25 super chat from Avari Mandubratis, who says, please read the Morse code message. Also, sorry to Matthew and Andrew, but Andrew, could you please read the message using either your Churchill or your Attenborough voice? And Avari, first off, thank you very much for the support. But sadly, tonight, we have not had anybody solve the Morse code, at least that I saw. But Enforcer, would you like to go ahead and read it off anyway?
Yes. 1,100 Russians on the wall. It doesn't really work in a David Attenborough voice because he's got like this weird cadence where the song doesn't really work. So let me switch that real quick. What were the other options that he wanted to hear?
Churchill or Attenborough.
Oh man, they were both British. This is going to be hard then because it doesn't really work in their cadence. 1,100 Russians in a trench. 1,100 Russians in a trench. Drop a bomblet, get another one. Now there's 1,101 Russians in the grave. Or something like that. I actually forgot the direct translation for the Morse, like what the message really is. Something along those lines. If someone could decipher it, I'd be greatly appreciative. And to be honest with you all, this is something we've been seeing, is that there's like a lower and lower like deciphering of the Morse code message. We're getting fewer and fewer people who do it, and then sometimes, like, it's been a couple of nights now, we don't even get anyone deciphering it. So it's kind of throwing up into question whether the Morse code messages will continue to exist beyond the podcast on February 24th. So with that, I hate to put a downer on that, but I do thank you for the support, Avari. I hope that does address that fairly well. That wasn't really that good of a Churchill, but I did give it a shot. And so thank you so much once again for the support, Avari, in helping us to keep this channel running. And with that, we are on to the next one. I hope that was at least an acceptable Churchill.
All right, so hopefully that was acceptable Churchill for him. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from BC Skyman, who says, I watched Operator Starsky live today, and he said Russia is preparing for another invasion. They have 1,800 tanks, 3,000 BMP, and 500,000 soldiers preparing for the next major offensive. Have you heard this also? And Slava Ukraine.
And thank you for the support. I haven't heard that. And that's, I guess you could say that's where the disagreement comes in. However, I do want to say this. Whenever I say I disagree with Starsky, this isn't like me saying that he's like dumb or anything and I have a beef with him or something. It's not at all. He's a great guy. He's a really cool, personable person whenever we talk with him behind the scenes and also on the show too. We actually had him come on as a special guest one time. You know, like he just randomly popped up on a normal stream. He's a cool guy all around, but I just don't think this is going to happen. I don't know what other proof everyone else is seeing. There are like reports going around, but there are plenty of reports going around. Some of them are pro-Russian and based from there. So, you know, I don't really believe it. I don't see where these 500,000 guys are. We don't see the additional 1,800 tanks. We don't even know that the Russians have the ability to have 1,800 tanks just sitting around, or 3,000 APCs. And if there were 500,000 Russian soldiers, no matter how you tried to spread them out, it would be very clear on satellite footage that they're there. And we're not seeing any confirmation of that at all. Like if I go back, Russians prepare to invade Ukraine. On December 17th, 2022, on Sky.com, I bet you, can we just reject? Okay, cancel. Okay, whatever. We're getting off this website. We're going to the next one. So that was in 2022. We're looking for one in 2021. Russian, let's see, satellite footage of Russian troops on Ukraine border. So, we got pictures like this for months. This is from January 21st of 2022, showing the bases where Russian vehicles had been built up, where they were waiting, and where they were planning these offensives, and they were all over. Here's another picture of another base. Here's another picture of another base and another one, and we had endless pictures like this of that clearly showed Russian forces were building up and preparing for a massive invasion of Ukraine. And we even knew where these bases were, who was being based out of them, and where they were probably going to be going. We knew all that before the war even began, and this is something very important to remember, because we're not seeing any of this now. We've never seen anyone show satellite pictures of massive bases where all of these troops are being built up. You would clearly see them, because considering that there are 1,800 tanks and 3,000 armored personnel carriers claimed to be in this offensive, that is, I believe, more than the initial invasion numbers even called for. And especially the 500,000 soldiers, you would have to put them somewhere. You would have to put them in camps. So where are those camps? We haven't seen any pictures of those either. And that's what's making me believe that it can't happen. Because they have to be somewhere, and if you can't physically see them on satellite, they're obviously not hiding underground. It's probably not happening, and that's where I'm sitting at. That's like kind of like my camp right now, and I feel like we're the only one in it. Maybe everyone else is seeing stuff that I'm not seeing, because I'm not seeing this, and that's kind of the largest and most important indicator that something will actually be kicking off, is if we see satellite pictures and proof that they're actually going to be doing something.
Now, one thing that we haven't thought about is the Ukrainian government apparently has determined that nothing is going to happen, according to the intelligence reports. Also, is Starsky even allowed to have an opinion contrary to his superiors?
I don't know. I don't know. I will have to declare
because I was wondering if maybe he was told to say that on purpose for some like operation.
I don't know. All I know is that I would largely. I'm largely not in that camp. I just don't see it. So, you know, if Starsky does see something, and hopefully he'll be on the podcast with us on the 24th, I would love for him to show that to us, like the pictures and stuff that he may have found that we've never seen that shows that these buildups are happening. But we don't see him, so I can't say that this is going to happen because we have no proof it will. So with that,
he's got to have a reason. I'm confident he's got some reason.
I don't know. I mean, like, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. I mean, like, there's just a lot of reports going around that this is coming, but unlike the first time in 2021, we're not seeing any picture or video evidence that there's an actual buildup. I've never seen it. And like, let's see, 500,000 Russian troops. Let's see here. Here's the first one, January 26th. This is from The Guardian. So, you know, take it for what you will. And as you scroll through the article, notice the very clear lack of pictures or videos showing the buildup of bases like there was before.
I think I saw the Kyiv Independent reported back there too.
On
this page. And then on The Guardian back there on the search results.
Let's see. I don't see. Oh, here we go. This was 5 days ago. Okay, so picture, information. No pictures of bases. And that's my thing on this one. There's no pictures of bases like we saw in the first one, where we saw where all of them were, how many soldiers were involved, where they're probably going to be going. We're not seeing any of that this time. You know, and that's weird.
Definitely weird.
Let's see here. Clarified.
Where are you going with this?
And look at this. Clarified that the predicted 300,000 to 500,000. That's a massive difference. That's literally the size of the pre-war Ukrainian army, from the smallest it could be to the largest it could be. That Russia will likely mobilize would be in addition to the hundreds of thousands of conscripts drafted during late 2022.
I mean, personally, I would tend to believe that Russia has to be drafting more civilians because that's the only thing they can do. And, you know, it would make sense to do it all in one big wave and one big push. So I saw some folks saying that the offensive might have already started, but I seriously doubt that, to be honest.
If that offensive had started, we would know, because there's going to be 500,000 soldiers involved in it, 1,800 tanks, and 3,000 APCs, so it will definitely be big enough that it would be clear that it started, but there's really no clear indication it started, even right now. So, I'm going to have to be in the camp. I don't really believe much of this because there's not enough picture or video evidence. Let's go to the Hill and let's see if they have anything to really show in picture or video evidence. Once again, it's just going with the same numbers. 300, 500,000, talking about von der Leyen. No real pictures. And now we get down to eggs, which looked like both of these testicles for a minute. I was like, uh-oh. Let's go to the New York Post. New York Post reported on it. But scrolling through here, look at that like this. This is just going with numbers. It's not even showing where they are. Like, see, it shows Russian buildup near Ukraine, and it's giving all these numbers, but it's not showing where. Like the first time, we knew where they were. We had the numbers and everything, and we knew exactly where they were across the entirety of the border. Here, we don't get that. We just show occupied areas, retaken areas, and then the estimated numbers. But we have no idea where they are, although it's twice the size of the original invasion force. And that's just why I'm not believing it. I'm sure everyone has a reason for saying it, but I'm not seeing enough proof to really confirm that this is happening. And once again, no satellite pictures or anything showing these camps. So with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well. And once again, while I'm very adamant that I don't think this is going to happen, I could be wrong, so take it with a grain of salt. But with that, thank you once again for the support. I hope we addressed that fairly well, and we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Psyops, who puts in a $20 donation and says, Live 24 here. And this is about to be spicy. Live 24 has breaking news, breaking weather, breaking wind, breaking everything. We were live here with Enforcer. Is it true that Mr. Corgi has a stinky smell similar to Texas?
No, Mr. Corgi is a very clean dog.
How often do you sniff dog bum?
Never. That would be weird. I will tell you.
That was a question from Psyops, by the way. That wasn't me.
I was about to say, man, that's kind of a weird one, taking things a little in a different direction. But to answer all of your questions, Hypes, Mr. Corgi is not smelly. I do not smell dog butt, but I will tell you that our entire family does sniff the dogs every once in a while because they smell like cute little babies. I don't really know how to explain it.
Fur.
Yeah, we sniff the fur, like around their neck. They smell like little babies for some reason, like little fur baby things. So everyone always sniffs them, and they're like, "Oh, they smell so sweet," and they are so sweet. And then they're like yanking around, like when you're holding them, like, "Put me down, stop manhandling me." And then we put them down, and they like run off. But they're very sweet, they're very precious, and they don't stink. They never stink, except for when Mr. Corgi gets scared, and then he gets like this weird odor. But with that, I thank you so much once again for support, Psyops. Once again, fairly weird, but I hope we got through that one. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Red Lamani, who says, "Hello, guys. Sorry, I rarely get home on time to watch the stream. I always watch the day after. Here a few bucks from Leaf Spring Army Chef. And also, Red, I hope everything's going good with the restaurant. And if we ever swing by New York, we will certainly go by there, like we said last time. But thank you for the support."
And thank you for the support, Red. And thank you to Elise Spring Army Chef. One chef to another. Because I'd be cooking up the news, you'd be cooking up those pizzas. And we'll make sure one day to have a taste of that pizza. Because I'm a big fan of pizza. I love pizza. Pizza's the best. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And also, thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running. Your support counts and helps this channel to keep rolling. Also, some people have been saying, have been asking, do we smell the dogs while wet? No, we only smell them when they're dry, because that would be nasty to smell them wet, because they don't smell good wet. That's one of the few times they don't smell good. And some people are saying that's weird. I don't know how that's weird, because because all of us do that. Like, my mom does it, I do it, Matthew does it, my dad does it. Like, whenever you pick up the dogs, because you pick them up and they're right under your face, like your nose is literally pretty much in their fur already. So then when you sniff them, they're like, oh, like they smell like a little like rabbit pelt that you buy for like $5. If any of y'all,
the whole family of dog fur sniffing.
Yeah, we're dog sniffing aficionados. Anyways, with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much for the support once again, Red. I hope we addressed that fairly well, and I hope we addressed the whole thing with the dogs fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Moity Movies, who says, "Keep doing the smart and cool program, guys."
And thank you so much for the support. And thank you, Martin Moody, if I'm correct.
Moity Movies.
Morty Movies.
Moity. Moite.
Moiety movies. For some reason, that translated in my head a whole different way. But still, I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I'm glad that you do enjoy this channel enough to help us to keep this thing running. Because if it wasn't for a viewer like you, this wouldn't be possible. And so, thank you so much once again. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
Wow, that's a nasty bot right there. Do you see that one? I just stugned it.
Oh, let's see here. Let me read it. Yeah, that one was pretty funny. Actually, like it was like a completely incoherent sentence that I just threw, and that doesn't even make any sense. But anyways, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Marion Deemer, and it's a $20 super chat. Chive on LSA.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support. And chive on. Chive is something that used to be pretty hot back in the day, but it's fallen off. Look at that. It's a chive. Where do chives come from?
It goes good on a loaded potato.
Oh yeah, man, this stuff's delicious. Where did it originally come from? Let's see. Chives have been cultivated in Europe since the Middle Ages, although their usages date back to 5,000 years. Some were often referred to as rush leeks, because when you were rushing for leeks, you had to get the chive. It was mentioned in 80 A.D. by Marcus Aurelius Martialis in his epigrams. He who bears chives on his breath is safe from being kissed to death. Damn, what a roast. Oh my god, this man was dropping roasts back in 80 A.D. Good lord. The Romans believed chives could relieve the pain from sunburn or a sore throat. They believed eating chives could increase blood pressure and act as a diuretic. Romani have used chives in fortune-telling. Bunches of dried chives hung around a house were believed to ward off disease and evil. In the 19th century, Dutch farmers fed cattle, on the herb to give a different taste to their milk. Is that where Gouda comes from?
Maybe?
Maybe? Dude, the Dutch be on something, though. You know, like that Johan de Witt guy, you know? Like, the Dutch are a little weird, you know? Like, the Dutch are cool, but they're also a little weird in a way. Because who the hell, like, eats their prime minister? You know?
Yeah.
Like, a little weird. But anyways, with that, I thank you so much for the support, and we will make sure to chive on. And there's a little bit of a fun fact and a little bit of history about the chive. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support, and we will make sure to keep chiving on.
All right. And up next, we have a $15 super chat from Cindy Mitchell, who says, I am from the Yukon. It was shot down this afternoon in the center of my territory. UFO, question mark? Not little green men, red men.
They're commies. Shoot them down. Oh man, thank you so much for the support. And really cool that we actually have a viewer that lives in the Yukon. I never thought we would have a viewer that lived in the Yukon, but I thank you so much for the support and sharing with us that you do live in the Yukon. What does a town up here look like Whitehorse? Which is one of the bigger towns here, and it's still quite small. They have a Walmart though. That's wild. They have a Walmart in the Yukon.
Also, could you see it, Cindy? Could you just look up and like see something going on, or what?
Dude, this has got to be the most beautiful location that a Walmart's ever been in. Look at that. That's literally just the other side of the street, and the Walmart's over here.
Walmart has grace to this land.
Yeah, dude, this is like that giant flying like spaghetti monster thing that goes, this is a good place for a Dollar General. You know, like that's what Walmart did right here. They're like, this is a good place for a Walmart. Threw one down. What does the rest of this town look like? I don't know where you live in, and hopefully we don't get it like right on, but not a bad. Oh look, Ukrainian flags. Look at that. They support Ukraine in the Yukon.
Oh, very nice.
Very nice. Very nice. And also not that bad of a place. They blurred this out. Apparently the aliens live here, and they were trying to fly back to their place. But, yeah, pretty nice town, especially for like the Yukon. It's really remote out here. Like, no one really lives out here, and it looks incredibly nice. Actually, kind of blown away with how nice this looks. Except for this one right here. Yeah, but the rest of it's really nice. So with that, I thank you for the support. It's good to hear that it was shot down right over you. And if you can, go out there and get us a little souvenir from it and ship it to us via the mail. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. But still, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And also, do you live in Mayo?
Mayo.
Mayo? Oh, wow, it's got Street View. Dude, Mayo would be the kind of place where you get some mayonnaise. I like that church. And also this motel is, like, really cute. It doesn't really look like a motel, it just looks like a long house. But with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
All right, and up next we have a $13.37 donation from Jack Ray, who says, for the Enforcer Narration Fund.
And thank you so much for the support. And in supporting the Enforcer Narration Fund, I try my best to make sure that this is narrated as best as possible, and the tone, the cadence, and the delivery of what I'm saying is as best as it can be. And I thank you so much for supporting the Narration Fund, because it helps the lights to keep running and to keep staying on, and while those lights stay on, I can continue my job at narrating this news. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope I addressed that comment fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and this one goes to Jesus USCB, who puts in a 10 and says, this is the Mexican-American U.S. tanker veteran. Oh, and Slava Ukraine, and can we get a NAFO shout-out?
Hey, and we always give a shout-out to NAFO. Like, what? We always give a shout-out. Like, whenever Super Bonker's here, we always shout-out NAFO. Super Bonker, he hasn't been around a lot often. We miss him. But moving on from that, huge shout-out to NAFO. NAFO is a really cool organization, a lot like the Lee Spring Army, that's been doing a lot of good for Ukraine, and I think they're pretty neat. Also, I have not, to answer that real quick, I haven't, so it must have not come through. But moving on from that, and back to this, can you reread that one again, Matthew?
For the Enforcer, wait a minute, we moved on from that one. Jesus USCB says, this is the Mexican-American U.S. tanker veteran, and Slava Ukraine, can we get a NAFO shout-out?
Oh, yeah, huge shout-out to NAFO. Also really cool to know that another Lee Spring Army tanker is in the house, because it's neat, and also we know where your base is. We know where you once were, somewhere around here. Where the hell did it go? Maybe this is it? No? What? It was right here last time. Oh, well. Anyways, I still thank you for the support. Oh, and here it is. It's up here. Yeah, there it is. It's right up here. But I do thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for our Lee Spring Army tankers, we wouldn't have any armor up in this army. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And also, real quick, Matthew, I'll scroll through viewer activity real quick and see if I see it in here. And let's see. This is going back all the way to 9:59, and I'm not seeing it. So I do not believe that it came through. Just to try and make sure that we fix that as soon as possible, because I don't see it.
All right. So with that being said, we're moving on to our next one, which goes to Melanie Larson, who puts in a $10 donation and says, please repeat your story of the Ukrainian you met. Was he an exchange student? And if you've had any updates from him, and thanks.
So, to recount the story, back when I was in high school, a foreign exchange student came over from Ukraine. He was originally from Poltava, and he actually is still in Poltava. He still lives there. And he came over here, and we met him, and we got to learn a little bit about Ukrainian culture. He actually wore some, like, traditional Ukrainian clothes to school a couple of times, which was really cool. And he was a pretty cool dude. He was a pretty funny guy, pretty neat. He went back to Ukraine, of course, at the end of the school year, and he lived over there. So when the war started, we ran the channel to help him get out because the news had collapsed. And I kept in touch with him as best I could, but of course he was fairly busy. And then we tried to bring him on as a guest at one point, but it was so early in the morning for him, he couldn't ever come on. So he's just like, don't worry about me, I'm fine. And from what I know, the last time I checked on him, he was fine. And the last time I checked on him was about, I think, 2 months ago. He was fine then. I only check on him every once in a while because we don't really talk a huge amount, but considering that he was over there and the news had collapsed, that's the whole reason this stream started. We just kept on running it. But he's okay for now, and I don't think he's ever had to join the Ukrainian armed forces yet. He hasn't been called up to serve. So with that, I hope that recounts that story fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Alan Sanderson, who says a UFO is literally an unidentified flying object. It isn't limited to extraterrestrial origin. And Alan, you're right, because oftentimes when you say UFO, most folks immediately think aliens, but literally it just means unidentified aircraft.
And I do thank you for the support, and that is true. It's not just alien spacecraft. Sometimes it's you know, it's a oh well, I don't know if I can make that joke, but moving on from that, you are correct. A UFO could be anything as long as it's an unidentified flying object. So thank you for sharing that with us, and thank you so much once again for the support. For saying that, we're going to send you to Fort McPherson. Holy moly, man! I can't believe people live this far north. Man, this is what the frontier looks like. That would be the frontier in the Northwest Territory. But we're going to send you there to Fort McPherson because you can't be telling us that. It's blasphemy. But yes, there are more UFOs than just extraterrestrial, flying saucers or whatever they are. So with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
And the next one goes to Nick Moore, who puts in a $10 donation and says, with Ireland being neutral, like Switzerland, and not in NATO, do you think NATO would protect Ireland or just help them protect themselves as they have no real army?
They would probably protect Ireland for strategic reasons, because if Ireland was ever attacked by a country like Russia or a rival to the Western Sphere, this means that a naval blockade of Russia wouldn't be possible, because they would have submarine bases and other things probably in Ireland, so they would probably defend them just for that strategic reason. Also, it would have to do with British security, British national security, because this would be the only area where I guess you could say, nearly hostile country would be bordering on the British, so they would probably get involved for that reason. So with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well, at least in my opinion, because I do believe the Irish situation would be viewed differently. So thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And next up, a shout out to Sharon Tukolsky, who puts in a $10 donation, June Brooks, who puts in a 7, and Junebug72, who puts in a 5. Thank you three very much, Junebug, June, and also Sharon, for that very generous support, and we appreciate it very much. Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank all of y'all so much for y'all's support. Y'all help this channel keep on running, and while y'all didn't throw in comments, the support does mean a lot, and it does say a lot. It says to keep this channel running, keep those lights on. Make sure to flip on those light switches without any regard for the electrical bill. I'm just kidding. We still regard the electrical bill like religiously, but still, thank you so much once again to all of y'all for helping this channel to keep on running. If it wasn't for y'all, it wouldn't be possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank y'all once again for the support.
And the next one goes to Ivan Diablo, who puts in a 10 Canadian, and says, do you think Russians are going to do something because of Super Bowl Sunday?
No. No. Outside of the United States, nobody really cares about the Super Bowl. It's just kind of a thing. It's kind of like how the United States, for the large part, doesn't care about the World Cup. No one really cares about the Super Bowl outside of America, unless you're into the Super Bowl, and very few are. So I feel like they're not going to be doing anything because of Super Bowl Sunday, so rest assured you can watch your Super Bowl game in peace and security, knowing that nothing crazy will happen. Wouldn't that be funny, though, if like a Russian Tu-160 just like buzzed the Super Bowl stadium or something? Anyways, I'm just kidding, you wouldn't be able to make it in the US. Well, I don't know, if the Chinese balloon proved anything, it's that if we think it has a bomb on it, we'll let it fly over everything. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one, and I hope that addresses the comment fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support.
Wouldn't it be cool instead of football, like something like F1 was like the national sport of America that we were obsessed with?
I don't know. I mean, like, it's all really the same when you think about it. It's just like a thing you watch on TV to, just have a little bit of fun. It may as well be anything, it could be wiffle ball for all I care. It's just whatever the public's interested in the most.
I would love to hear about F1 all the time if people would like to talk about it like they do football. I know, but when everybody talks about football, you don't have a clue what's going on unless you like keep up with it religiously, and you're always like feeling left out. Like, okay, like what happened last week? I don't know. Somebody threw the ball, made a touchdown. I don't know.
Dude, did you see that 30-yard pass from Patrick Lambaster? Oh man, that was incredible. Oh my god, did you hear about them signing that new contract with Aaron Burr? No way. Like I
Yeah.
don't know. For some reason, I never was able to get into that because
Or
you
that
know,
time that Tiger Woods ran that touchdown for Auburn.
oh, dude, man, incredible. Did you hear about that time that Paul? Did you hear about that time that Paul Nielsen was able
You're
to
about to get
run?
roasted.
And I know because I was following your joke, man. Obviously Tiger Woods is a golfer; he's not a footballer. But
You played that too well then.
okay, whatever. Anyways, anyways, did you see that time that Paul Nielsen ran that 200-yard touchdown? Not only did he run from one touchdown zone to the other, he ran it all the way back and scored a second touchdown, all in one play. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Absolutely incredible. Anyways, with that, I thank you for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right, and up next we have a $10 super chat from Chip Kerwan, who says, "We learn best by our mistakes. Copyright lessons learned as LSA consigliere in my stream dreams. I cringe with fear in reference to product disparagement, liability, soda, liquefy, rat, joke. Needs the word soften."
Well, I thank you for the support. We're gonna soften the words on that, much like that Mountain Dew will soften up that rat after about 2 weeks. Thank you so much once again for the support. Oh man, thank you for helping this channel keep on running. We're not that scared of copyright infringement because if you make a statement like that about Mountain Dew, there's really nothing that can come back to get you. Instead, if you say something with like true intent, like Mountain Dew is going to like poison your kids, and you know they're going to turn them into zombies, so don't buy Mountain Dew, then that's causing like financial damage to them. You could probably get in trouble for that and get sued for it. But I don't really know, Matthew. What is it? Would there be a case for that? Because I'm thinking there may be, but it feels like a bit of a
A
stretch.
case for talking about dissolving rats in the soda?
No, I'm talking about like a case for saying something almost completely defamatory against a product, like don't buy it, it's going to turn your kids into zombies, like literal zombies are going to go around killing people, and then it scares people for some reason into not buying their product. I feel like you could be sued for that.
If you're making it as a factual statement, like you know for a fact, and try to pass it off like that, that's probably disparaging the product and defamation.
Yeah, I feel like you get sued for that, but saying something that is truthful about the product, like the rat dissolving in it, it can't get you in trouble because it's a proven fact, and it's something that I believe they brought up in that lawsuit. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and I thank you so much for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so up next we have a $25 super chat from Toby Huang, who says, "One of the few times I'm able to catch your live show. Here's to keep the lights on and keeping us informed."
And thank you, Toby Huang, for the support. You are, in fact, keeping those lights on and keeping yourself informed by helping this channel to keep on running. And it's really cool to know that you've made the pilgrimage, like many have before, to catch this stream live. Many people do that and then say, "I'm here live! It's the first time!" And it's really cool to hear it because it's neat to know that people enjoy this channel so much that they make it a mission to catch it live. So, with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Toby Huang. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And you know, before we move on to the next one, Matthew, Siri said again, things dissolve in water too. How fast does a rat dissolve in water? How fast does a rat dissolve in water? It could dissolve a mouse in a few months. So
Oh, somebody actually made a video of dissolving a rat in Mountain Dew. I just saw it back there.
yeah, we're not watching that, although it's on YouTube and it appears to not even be age restricted, but dissolve in Mountain Dew. How long does it take for a rat to dissolve in Mountain Dew? While published studies have not been conducted on how rapidly Mountain Dew would dissolve a mouse, there's plenty of evidence to suggest that neon green soda can eat away teeth and bones in a matter of months and would likely do quite a number on a rodent. I swear I heard the story that they brought that up in court, that the rat dissolves in 34 days, but
Oh,
let's see.
allegedly.
Wait, this was with Pepsi. There was a rat in the soda can with Pepsi, and it actually was in the can. And the FDA said, we don't know how it got in the can. What? Crazy. Let's see. Wait a minute, here is something. We'll see about this. Oh, look at that little thing. That's actually a cute mouse. Let's see. Leave the tab open, come back later. Let's see. Popped on a can of Mountain Dew. Let's see. Mountain Dew. Oh, look, there's the video. But really dissolve. YouTube, test it. Oh, we gotta watch. We gotta watch it. No. Oh, wait, I'll pull that up on a second screen. So 1 second. Give me a minute. We'll see what he got from it. Like, how many days did it take for him? It's got 6.7 million views.
A lot of people like to see rats dissolve.
Dude, man, a lot of people. I mean, like, dude, they like to watch a rat in Mountain Dew. Jeez.
Sniff the mouse.
So let's see here. He's waited this thing out, and by day 37.
Oh, the fur's coming off.
Wait, you can't see it, can you?
No.
Dude, that's actually gross. I'm like about to vomit watching that. The rat dissolved in 37 days. Like the only thing that was left was the tail. So yes, it can dissolve within 37 days. So with that, yeah, you know, I hope that addresses that fairly well. We're on to the... So it'll take months for it to dissolve in water. It takes 37 days in Mountain Dew, which gives you an idea of how acidic it is compared to water. But with that, oh my god, certain Def said, a shotgun dissolves rats pretty good. Good lord. Remember that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for bringing that up. Good point, though.
All right, so up next, we have a $10 super chat from Nick Moore, once again. He says, did you know in the 70s, Mountain Dew was a rock concert in Macroom, Ireland, featuring Rory Gallagher? And it's not what you think.
Let's see, Mountain Dew was a rock concert in Macroom, Ireland, featuring Rory Gallagher. That's really interesting to hear. I find that neat. Let's see where Gallagher is, because, you know, we're always one to find out where something is. Wait, Macroom, that's where we want to find. Let's see, Macroom in County Cork. Dude, imagine living in a county called Cork. Like, that's probably gotta be the best thing ever. Let's open up the wine. Who's going to open up the cork? The city mayor. You know, something like that. Let's drop down the town. Take a look at this thing. Oh! Beer and spirits at the Greyhound.
The Greyhound. Could I have some beer at the Greyhound?
Restaurant and takeaway. Fast food, Indian, kebab, and pizza. Let's see here. What else do we have here in the town of whatever the hell this thing was called? We got Deneen's Bar. Have yourself a pint in Deneen's Bar. You got our Collins in 21. You got Musta Barbershop. How much of your hair do we cut? Most of it. Let's see what else we got around here. Enchanted flowers and gifts. We got those flowers that are enchanted up in here. Leprechaun magic and all that. Macroom Printing Works. You need something printed? Coming in our printing works. We have digital color and general photocopying. We got office supplies, stationery, gifts, and wedding stationery. Just in case you want to keep your wife still in one place, we got something for you. It's not anything related with printing. It's pills. Let's see what else we got around the area. We got TP Cutters Spirits.
CP.
There's literally a pub just a walk away from another one. It is Ireland. It's Ireland. And they got the Guinness in this one too. They got a sign for the Guinness down there, and as soon as you get plastered...
What's on the back of that bus?
Fly Shannon. I'll tell you something. You're not flying with Shannon, you're riding Shannon, I'll tell you.
Oh my god, that's not PG.
Well, it's not PG, but I think we've entered the past 9 o'clock hour, so we can do it technically. But moving back to the pubs and all, you get plastered in your Guinness at one pub, and you literally, in a drunken stupor, walk down the same block, and at the end of the block, you can get some more Guinness. And then make your drunken stupor to the Turkish barber. And then to the next bar that sells Guinness. This is Ireland. This is it.
I've already said, tell Andrew this is Ireland. Not great to use a Scots accent.
Whatever, everybody.
Can you talk about the IRA? What's that song that the IRA loves to have?
We're not touching that. Potty power. Matthew, when the IRA does anything in Belfast, potty power, baby. But anyways, with that, We're going to be moving on to the next, but thank you for sharing that with us. Really interesting fun fact. And thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope y'all enjoyed that. I hope that was funny. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Lars, who says, "Can we stop China paper dragon and put it back?" I don't know about repeating that part. It sounds a little bit questionable, but can we put it back to where it belongs?
We can. If we start cutting economic ties with the Chinese, they'll start to shrivel and die. So yes, we can. We just have to figure out where we take all of that industrial output they have and put it somewhere else. And that's a bit of a question. Because, a lot of people are saying that it'll cost more if we produce things in other countries, but everyone forgets the fact that there are many underdeveloped countries where people work for pennies, and if you want cheap stuff, you can just move the factories there. And then that sounds really crass, but that's the reality of why they're even in China in the first place, is that they pay the workers pennies, and so things can get produced incredibly cheap. So you can move them into like Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam. I don't know about Burma. You could probably start to align the Indians diplomatically and politically with the Western world if we start to move a lot of our industries from China to India, which would probably lead them to have a large economic boost, and we could maybe see about bringing them into our sphere. And also that would be good because they have an inherent, I guess you could say, diplomatic qualm with the Chinese, so we'd be aligning ourselves with people who are anti-Chinese. So that would be a pretty good thing to do. So anyways, with that, I hope that answers that fairly well. I thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Christina Law, who says, "Enforcer Matt, say my name, lulz." Just saying. You both are amazing, and thanks for all you do. And take a live chat question, please.
And thank you so much for the support. And we did say your name. I hope you enjoyed that. And we will make sure to get a live chat. And thank you so much for the kind words as well.
All right. And the live chat question goes to Frequency Harmonic, who says, "Enforcer, $1 million S-300 missile for a $20,000 drone. Not a good exchange for Ukraine. They need to tighten that up. What are your thoughts?"
We need to improve the exchange from Ukraine. I'm just moving on to seriously answer that. It's not the best thing, but sometimes it's what you have to do because there may be no other air defense in the area. So while it's not the best thing, it's not the norm either. So with that, I thank you so much for the support, and I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running. But that is a good point. $1 million missile for a $20,000 drone, or a dollar store drone, isn't the best of exchanges economically. But with that, we're on to the next one. Thank you once again.
All right. And the next one goes to Jason Hubbard, who puts in a 5 and says, "With all of the war crimes committed by Russia, will there ever be justice served against them for it? Historically, they tend to get away with it."
Historically, they'll probably get away with it again because of the Russian government and the Russian Federation exists by the end of this war. There will really be no way to go in there and find the people who are the criminals and then hold them accountable. That's usually the way it breaks down, and that's really the reality we're looking at right now, unless if something serious happens within the Russian government where there's a massive change, and then these people can be held accountable by the Russian government and then the world at large. So with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, Hoodoo Texas wants to know from the live chat, are you saving the Russian drone boat attack in Odessa until tomorrow?
I've already seen it, and we were going to put it on. I believe my problem with it is that the footage clip that we got was 4 seconds long, and I usually have like a cutoff limit for how long a video can be that we'll show and how short one can be. And so that one was so short, it wasn't even worth showing because by the time I clicked on it, we would be clicking off. So I'm trying to wait for a longer video on that one, but we will show it eventually because it was like a Ukrainian kamikaze boat. The Russians had one, and they ran it into a bridge and blew it up in the area of Odessa. That occurred around today in the early hours. But with that, we are on to the next one. And I hope that answers that question fairly well, Hoodoo Texas.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Luis Vasquez. And YouTube says, "Celebrate the first super chat from Luis Vasquez with balloons." So thank you very much, Luis. Thank you. And hopefully I got your last name right, because I remember getting roasted for mispronouncing that last name about, 4 or 5 months ago. But Enforcer, what say you?
It's not Vasquez, it's Vasquez, damn it.
But still, thank you so much.
Lewis, does it bother you if anybody says it the other way? Like, you have the last name, so you tell us.
Our last name is mispronounced everywhere, and we kind of just got used to it, so we'd never consider it that big of a deal to mispronounce others' last names, but we would like to know, do you like Vasquez or Vasquez? That is a good question. But moving on from that, I do thank you so much for the support, Luis Vasquez. Or Louis? I'm just kidding, it's Luis. I thank you so much for the support, Luis Vasquez, and helping this channel to keep on running. Your support helps us to keep the lights on, helps us to keep reporting the news here on this channel, and without you, it wouldn't be possible. And so, thank you so much once again. I hope we addressed that fairly well, and let's find out. What does he like better, Vasquez or Vasquez? It's okay. Enforcer got it right.
Wait a minute, Enforcer got it right.
So Vasquez is correct.
No, Vasquez, I think.
No, Vasquez.
I said Vasquez.
No, I said Vasquez.
I said it too.
Well,
he said it's okay though.
So tell us this real quick, Lewis, so that way we can get it right. I'm going to say Vasquez, and Matthew's going to say Vasquez. With that in mind, which one of us is getting it right? Is it Vasquez, which is what I'm saying, or is it Vasquez, which is what Matthew's saying? So, with that, we're going to move on to the next one. We'll wait for that, though, and we'll get that answer here in a second, most likely. But still, thank you so much once again for the support. And now we'll get down to the bottom of it, Matthew. Which one of us said it right? Me with Vasquez, or you with Vasquez? So with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. And I'm looking for it, just sort of scrolling through here. He said I got it right.
So it is Vasquez. So I got it right. As I said it's not Vasquez, it's Vasquez. So it is Vasquez. So with that, we are on to the next one. We finally got down to the bottom of that mystery. Deal.
Oh, wait. Prince Blake said you're both wrong. Oh, boy. Anyways, up next, we have a $5 super chat from Lars, who does not leave a comment or a question. So thank you, Lars, very much for that support, and we appreciate you very much. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Landlubber, who says, let's see here. Vice News, quote-unquote, nationalism of nothing, life in modern Russia. It's very good, and it's on YouTube from yesterday.
And I thank you for the support and sharing that with us. I actually saw that video in my recommend today, but it was a little too long for me to watch, so I had to skip over it. But still, thank you for the support. I'll make sure to look into it. And thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And so that, we're on to the next one. And thank you.
All right, and the next one goes to Raj Kapoor. Call him out. Call him out. The Enforcer got it wrong. Call him out.
Call him out. Call him out.
All right, so up next, we have a $5 super chat from Raj Kapoor, who says, is there any info of when and in what quantity Ukraine is going to receive GLSDBs?
We don't really have any information on the GLSDBs, except for they'll eventually be in Ukraine and be delivered regularly. So we don't know what regularly means, like how many per shipment and how much of a rate will that give the Ukrainians to use them. We don't really know. So with that, I hope that addresses the lack of information we have fairly well. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, guess what? We're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Lewis Highsmith, who says coffee fund.
And thank you, Lewis Highsmith, for the support to the coffee fund. We've got to get a coffee. You know what I mean? We've got to have a coffee. And so thank you so much for helping us to have that cup of coffee and helping us to keep this stream running. Yo, Adrian. I did it! With that, we're on to the next one. Thank you once again, Lewis Highsmith.
And thank you so much, Lewis, for funding that nice, smooth pike roast K-Cup fund. But anyways, up next, we have a $5 super chat from Rad Doctor, who says, in answer to an earlier question regarding larger AK mags, they would impede ability to shoot prone.
And interesting. Ability to shoot prone. That is true.
You'd probably end up knocking your teeth out with the gun by hitting on the ground.
Yeah. Oh, and your teeth are gone. You would have to wear a mouth guard around with that thing, but that is a good point too. So I thank you for the support and sharing that with us, because that is another great point as to why those are not issued. And so with that, guess what? We're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Anthony Bestwick, who puts in a 5 and says ATACMS are not that great for Ukraine, as only 3,700 built and no more can be built, but UK is considering sending Storm Shadows as they can be replaced.
And I guess you could say that they're not that great for Ukraine. But still, I thank you for the support and sharing that with us. That is an interesting fact that I didn't know about, and that may be the reason why we're not really wanting to send them beyond the official stated reason. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from the B-Night3, who says, what are you guys eating while watching the Super Bowl? Also, what foods have you enjoyed from elsewhere in the world? What one dish you want to try? First, for me, during the Super Bowl, well, first of all, for me, during the Super Bowl, I would like to eat my chips from that very large Super Bowl. But let's see. What food have you enjoyed from somewhere else in the world? Also, when is the Super Bowl? I see you're looking it up.
Tomorrow at 5:30.
Oh, wow. How long does it go for?
I don't really know. I feel like
oh man, is this going to interfere with the fundraiser stream?
Nah, man. The Leaf Spring Army, they don't stop for the Super Bowl. They'll be here. I don't know how long it'll go on. I guess it just goes on for however. And apparently Tom Cruise is parachuting into the Super Bowl.
Why does that make me cringe, like, from the inside out for some reason?
I don't know. Also, another thing is I'm sure that the halftime show will be really fun this year. And I've got to be honest with you. I just got to be honest with you. Y'all know that I'm one to keep things not political. I don't really like how over the past 10 years, and this is something you could say equally, it just depends on what year you look at with the Super Bowl or the NFL in general. They've gone political for like the past decade in one direction or the other, depending on what phase you're looking at. I don't really like that. I feel like politics ought to be removed from things like the news, from sports, from entertainment, because they're not supposed to be keeping you embroiled in the stuff. They're supposed to be a bit of escapism. Well, except this isn't escapism. Y'all are looking at what most people wouldn't want to look at here on this channel with war news, but you know, I don't really like that, you know, because when I watch something, I don't want to sit there and have different kinds of political opinions from all kinds of different people, whether they be from one direction or the other, being thrown at me. I'm just there to watch a show and enjoy it. You know, if I wanted to go and, you know, talk about politics, I'll go and hang out with people who I guess have nothing better to talk about. You know, I'm not going to sit there and watch your TV show and listen to it there. But anyways, with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well, and we're on to the next one.
You know, Tom Cruise could be a good dictator, because he's like the jack of all trades. He does basically everything.
he's going to sit there when he became the dictator and, you know, a war began. Let me in the F-18. I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Did you? I heard from someone that in that recent movie, Top Gun Maverick, one of the conditions of him being able to get in one of those fighter jets was he could not mess with the controls, because they figured he was going to try to fly it, and they didn't want him, you know, messing with an expensive jet, because, you know, he tries to do basically anything even though he shouldn't.
Yeah, that's true. And you know, I got to be honest with you. Tom Cruise is a good actor, but I feel like he's like trying to hang on to like the glory days at this point, you know, and I don't really like
He's getting old.
Yeah,
and he's acting like he's like 20 years old.
Yeah, you know, like he was cool in his younger years, but like people got to understand, as you age, you have to like kind of work with how you age. Like you're not always going to be a cool 20-year-old. You know, you can probably be like a wise 50-year-old or something. You know, you can't be the same your whole life. You can't act like a cool hip 20-year-old when you're like, you know, like 80. You know, like it just doesn't work. You need to like work your personality around what you are now. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well with Tom Cruise, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Avari Mandabratis, who puts in a 20 and says the wife wants to watch Death of Stalin. She asks if you have seen it. Also, did you catch the ludicrous display last night? What was Fenger thinking? The thing about Arsenal is that they like to walk it in. Name that UK TV show.
And I thank you for the support, Avari. Sadly, I don't know about Fenger. I don't know who Fenger is. And also Arsenal. I know Arsenal is a football team, a European football team. But you know, I don't really know a lot about it beyond that. Also, name that UK TV show. Doctor Who? I mean, maybe. And also, if your wife wants to watch The Death of Stalin, she must. It is an incredibly funny movie, and it summarizes the historical events fairly well, actually. It's just really condensed down, and they make it seem like it happened over days, but it really happened over months. But, you know, a movie can't make that conveyed properly, so they cut it down to a few days. But it was a great movie. I loved it, and the way they had everyone like introduce himself, especially Georgy Zhukov, was the funniest thing. The funniest thing ever. It was hilarious. Like, you remember that, man? You remember watching that movie when Georgy came in and he like flung the coat off him, like he lifted his arms up to fling it off, and he had like all the medals and stuff that were like flying around on his uniform. Funniest thing ever. Like, it's a great movie. I would highly recommend y'all watch it together because it's hilarious. So with that, thank you so much once again for the support of Ari. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. You know, I wonder if we could show like an 8-second clip of.
Oh,
no, I feel like we can. I feel like we can get away with it.
no, they're going to come. They're going to come down on us hard.
I don't know. Let's see.
They're going to bust our kneecaps and our shins
I don't think they will. I feel like they probably wouldn't.
and our ankles. They're going to twist those.
So, hang on. No, I think we can get away with this. It's only going to be like 8 seconds, I believe.
Oh, my elbows are hurting now.
So, I'm going to throw this up real quick, just for a second.
Right, what's a warhead got to do? Get some lubrication around here.
That's it. That's it. It's hilarious. I don't know why, but it's like the funniest thing. Anyways, we are on to the next one. Thank you once again for the support of Ari, and I hope we addressed that the best we could.
All right, and there's some person in the corner of the room right now with a baseball bat clinking it on their hand, saying you're next. But anyways, next one goes to Susie Q. Puts in a $4.50 and says $4.50 by the way. Who says, Enforcer, it's going to be February 22nd, Red Army Day.
Let's see, February 22nd, Red Army Day. You know how many days there are for the Russian military? Russian military holidays. There's like a holiday for everything in the Russian military. Holidays. Oh, let's see, Defender of the Fatherland Day. It was decided to move the holiday to the following Sunday, the 23rd of February. Interesting. Anyways, public holidays in Russia. Orthodox Christmas, Defender of the Fatherland's Day, Spring and Labor Day, Victory Day, Russia Day, Unity Day. Let's look at all the holidays. Prosecutor General's Day, Tatiana Day. International Duties Memorial Day, Day of Special Operations Forces. Okay, well, they actually have a holiday for that since 2014. Cultural Worker Day, Local Self-Government Day, like that's ever been the thing in Russia. Memorial Day for the lost in radiation accidents and catastrophes. The Day of Russian Parliamentarism. Day of Russian Language. Social Worker Day. Medical Worker Day. Navy Day. Partisans and Underground Fighters Day. Railway Workers Day. Day of Remembrance of Russian soldiers who fell in the First World War. Russian Railway Troops Day. Sports Day. Builders Day. Russian Air Force Day. State Flag Day. Film and Movies Day. Programmer Day. Day of Machine Building Industry Workers. What the hell? That's like the most specific like niche you could get. Russian Ground Forces Day. Russian Aerospace Defense Forces Day. Day of Advertisement Industry Workers. What the hell are these stupid holidays? Like, these are some of the dumbest ones you can come up with. Day of Special Forces of the Armed Forces. Day of Custom Workers. Day of MVD Security Services. Day of Remembrance of the Victims of Political Repressions that are still happening right now. Let's go. Let's remember them. Yeah, fall out the window. Day of Detention Centers and Prison Workers. Police and Internal Affairs Servicemen Day, Day of Missile Forces and Artillery, Naval Infantry Day, Fatherland's Heroes Day, and Strategic Missile Troops Day. Well, what do you know? They have a holiday for just about everything. So I wouldn't really count on it because you could also make an equal argument for most military holidays, and almost all of these are, that they would do something big then. And that's just me, but that's my opinion. So with that, I thank you for the support. I hope we addressed that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $3 super chat from O-Tubes, who says, good day from Lithgow, NSW, Australia. I always love your streams. At Enforcer Matt, Slava Ukraine, and Slava LSA.
And Slava Ukraini. And great to hear once again from our Australian viewer, and I think if I heard that correctly, Lithgow in New South Wales. Every one of our Australian viewers lives in New South Wales, I swear. Like, every single one of y'all. Like, I think there's one that lives in Perth. But everyone else lives in New South Wales or Queensland. I think we have a few that live in Victoria too. But then again, that makes sense because, you know, nobody lives in the outback, so You know, these are pretty much the areas where people live, so I don't know why I'm making it sound weird. Anyways, let's drop down in this little town of Lithgow. Main Street. Oh, crikey, mate. This looks nice. I like it. And look, the Salvation Army's right there. Oh, pretty neat. I like this town. It's a nice town.
Oh, the grass is greener here, actually.
The grass is greener, Matthew. It is, in fact, greener. Oh, what's this? Aboutpaving.com.au. We pave your way. Well, I hope so. I hope so. But a nice town, I have to say.
Look at those little houses over there. It's pretty cool looking to the right.
These?
Yeah.
Who's selling them? It's a public school.
Oh, it's a school. That's a nice school.
That is a really cool looking little school.
That's better looking than the college.
I feel like
everyone we go to.
Yeah, I feel like everyone who like goes to school overseas like has a better experience than us. Every time we see a school, I'm always like put to shame with what our schools look like and what they are. Like our schools in America are practically prisons, at least the one we went to. Moving on from that, this is a beautiful little town. I like this town. Maybe we'll come here one day. That's gonna be a long flight though. But anyways, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does. That's a university? That's supposed to be like the Virginia College of Australia, like Western Sydney University. But still, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And great to know that we have Lee Spring Army members all the way from the incredible country of New Zealand. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right, and our next one goes to Dupper Bob, who puts in a $2 donation. And thank you very much, Dupper, once again for that consistent support. And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Steve, Day 41, who says, United Kingdom in the house, first time dono.
Hey, UK in the house. And thank you so much for the first time supporting this channel. And also great to hear that our UK viewers from the Lee Spring Army are in the chat as well. And welcome. And so thank you so much once again for the support. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And for our last one, we have a $1 super chat from Destantra, who says, thanks, great, and a nice fun. Cheers.
And thanks, great, and thank you for the support. And cheers. And so with that rounds out our super chats, I suppose, for the rest of the night. And so for the rest of it, we're going to be answering live chats, and I hope you have enough, Matthew. I hope you have enough.
I have over 30.
Good. Also, real quick, let's pull up U.S. holidays. Because now that we saw all the Russian holidays, I was like, how many do we have? Let's see here. Let's go to Wikipedia. Public holidays in the United States. Let's go down to the list. Christmas, Thanksgiving, Mother's Day. Oh, look, and it actually gives us a percentage here. 96 to 92% of the United States celebrates Christmas, and it accounts for $630 billion in sales every year.
Damn.
That is a lot. Thanksgiving, Mother's Day, Easter, July 4th. Only 78 to 79% of the population celebrates the 4th of July. Halloween, the Father's Day, Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day, and New Year's Day.
Only 55% celebrate Valentine's Day.
Let's see here.
Well,
what else do we have? Epiphany. I've never heard of that one. Orthodox Christmas. Okay. This is an Eastern Orthodox thing. That's why I've never heard of it. Orthodox Christmas, Mardi Gras, and Ash Wednesday, Valentine's Day, Palm Sunday, St. Patrick's Day, Good Friday, Easter, Halloween, the Immaculate Conception of the Virgin Mary. Very descriptive. Christmas Eve and Christmas. There's also Hindu holidays, Jewish holidays, Islamic holidays, and then there are, Confederate holidays, drinking holidays, African American holidays. We have just about everything, I think. Like, in fact, I think we have every holiday in the world, pretty much. Like, Super Bowl Sunday is considered a notable holiday. Championship, summer vacation, spring
tax
break.
holiday.
Where's tax holiday? Oh, here it is.
I've always wanted a holiday for that.
I've always wanted one like that. You know what I mean? Like, why the hell can't we ever have one like that? But anyways, also Big Smoke said, can I ask you guys a legit question? No trolling, no cap? Yeah, sure.
Uh-oh.
Go ahead. Just go ahead. Just make sure not to be a bot or anything. But fine, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, no problem.
Oh, we got a bot. We got a bot.
Oh, where?
Just got him.
Oh, what do you say?
I wonder if they're working in tandem.
Oh, yeah. Real questions make them angry. No, it's dumb questions that make us angry. Real questions we are fine with, even if they disagree with us. But dumb questions, like, just goofy ones that are like shilling for the Russians, we don't have those. But let's get on into the live chat, speaking of which, and we'll wait for this one from our boy Big Smoke in all caps.
All right. And up next from the live chat, we have a question from Walter A. Lakota Jr. He says, Matt, my question is about Hawaiian food. We have poke, lau lau, kalaa pork, and manapawa. Have the enforcer Google Manapawa, Manapua. Hawaii fun fact, the Hawaiian goose, Nene, has Canadian geese.
Watch me whip. Watch me nene.
How do you about to say that? I was debating saying it, and I was like, no. And then you did it.
Char Sui Bao is a Cantonese barbecue pork-filled bazoi, or baozi. The buns are filled with barbecue-flavored cha sui pork, and they are served as a type of dim sum during Yom Cha, and are sometimes sold in Chinese bakeries. That sounds really good. I would eat that. What was the other ones?
Poke.
And how do you spell that?
Poke.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. That looks tasty.
Man, this looks exotic for some reason. It's got like basic stuff in it too, like beans and some jalapenos. But this looks so freaking good. And what's this fish? Like salmon? Tuna? It's tuna.
Yes, no, salmon on the other one.
Oh. Shrimp.
Oh, shrimp.
Shrimp. Hey, what you doing right here, little shrimp? Let's see. Did Big Smoke throw anything in yet?
No, I think he left, actually. Let's see.
Oh, come on.
He's still here, but hadn't thrown nothing in.
Come on, man. You throw that in all caps. You get my attention. Yeah, you can ask a question. Go on. We're waiting for it, man. We're waiting for it. What's the other ones, Matthew, that Walter threw in?
Let's see. Lau lau.
How do you spell that?
Lau. Lau.
Wow, what the hell is this?
Oh,
it's in that seaweed thing. I've seen this before. I don't know. For some reason, the seaweed thing looks a little unappetizing, but the fish looks good. It's like a nice looking meat. And then what's the other one?
The other one is kalaa pork.
How do you spell that?
Kalua pork.
That looks like pulled pork, honestly. That just looks like pulled pork you would get here in the South. I don't know if it has like any different like seasoning to it, but if it's pulled pork from the South, I would kill for this. So with that, I thank you so much once again for throwing that in, Walter. I hate to know that there was a problem on your end because there was a little bit of confusion earlier on the stream as to whether you'd send in a super chat or not. Once again, looking through, we didn't see it. So it may have been an error, but I'm glad that we were able to address it nonetheless. And thank you for being here, Walter. You are a legend both in fundraisers, supporting this channel, and a whole bunch of other things. And I'm glad to have looked over some Hawaiian cuisines because a lot of them looked pretty good. The only one I would be a little reluctant on is the lau lau. But still, thank you so much once again for sharing that with us. That is really cool looking food. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And up next, we have a question from Brian Blackwell, who says, Matt, what is the status of the tanks en route to Ukraine?
Some of them have actually made it into Poland already. Most of them have. And the Ukrainians are already training on it. The Polish are the ones operating most of the training programs on the Leopards. We don't know about the Abrams. We haven't gotten a lot of information on those. But the Leopards should be in Ukraine within a couple of weeks' time, most likely 4 weeks from now. So with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from, let's see here, The Sunken Grave, who says, do you think Navalny will be sent to the front?
I do not think Navalny will be sent to the front because I'll look too on the nose. He'll fall out of a window if they want to get rid of him. So with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. Hang on. Where the hell was this question? 1 second. I'm looking through because
Nope. Big Smoke was working in tandem with that other bot. I'll bet on it.
You know what's funny? He says, "Can I ask you guys a legit question? No trolling." Never throws in a question. And he says, "I throw it in 3 times, and y'all are going to ignore it because y'all are bringing up food." You never even threw in a question. So
We've seen this happen multiple times. The bots will come in pairs of 2 with a battle buddy, and they'll tag team like that. And there was a perfect example of it.
And you know, Matthew, it's they always think that if they come in pairs, they won't get slaughtered. But the truth is that they'll just die a little braver than most. So with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to let's see, AZ, who says, "Have y'all shown the German rocket laser mines or whatever they are called in action in Ukraine?"
We have, and I can't pull up any specific footage right now. We have seen them they're like a DM-23 or something like that. Really, really neat because they sit parallel to the side of the road, well, perpendicular to it, looking across it, and if anything drives in front of it, it explodes outwards and into the vehicle. So it's a really cool system, and we have shown those before. And so I hope we answered that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and good night to you, Jerry S. I did see he was leaving for the night, so we'll see you tomorrow during the fundraiser stream. Let's see. ML Harden said, "Do you know what the only dumb question is? The one you didn't ask. Thank you. Please ask."
Well, good point to bring up. And there is a such thing as a dumb question. I feel like questions that are charged are really dumb from a logical standpoint. Like, if I asked Matthew, don't you think it was wrong to go out there and buy that pork sandwich? That's a loaded question. That's honestly a dumb question, in my opinion, because you're already setting them up where they have to answer a certain way instead of saying something like, "Why did you buy that pork sandwich?" and then letting them
Well,
answer.
the honest question is, there's nothing wrong with buying a pork sandwich. So
No,
if you
there's
go out
nothing
and get
wrong.
one, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all.
Especially full moons with the chow chow, you can't go wrong. But still, I find some questions like that to be dumb, especially when they're charged or loaded, because it's like, if you're going to ask the question like that, and you're going to be that biased that you're going to make the bias clear in the question, why even ask it? So, in my opinion, there is a dumb way to ask a question, but there isn't really a dumb question, as long as it's asked the right way. So with that, I hope that answers that fairly well. And we're on to the next one.
And also, Madison Music Teacher, I almost forgot your super chat. I'm glad you reminded me, and I'm sorry about that. He says, "There is a Ukraine club in Huntsville, Alabama. I just joined."
Oh, that's really cool. I didn't know that, and that's pretty neat to know. Maybe sometime in the future I'll come up there and make a speech. I don't know. But anyways, thank you so much for letting us know about that, massive music teacher. And I actually saw that a second ago. I was actually about to address that live chat on my own, and then Matthew brought it up. So good job, Matthew. And also,
Thanks.
thank you once again for sharing that with us. That's really neat. And so with that, we are on to the next one. You're laughing at that one from George, aren't you?
No, I'm laughing at the one from Madison Music Teacher. That just went into like a 10 real fast. Did you read that?
Oh yeah, now I'm reading it. Good
What in
Lord.
the world?
Man, that's like those kinds of jokes where you come home and you immediately start taking the belt off when you get asked, "Honey, how's work?" Oh, no. That was terrible. Oh, anyways, with that, we're on to the next one. Jeez.
All right, and also shout out to Silver Earth for putting in a 4, and thank you very much for that support. And oh, wait a minute, we got a new one. What is in that mug? Do you see that? It's red.
What mug?
The
Where?
YouTube creature on the sticker is holding out a mug with a red liquid in it.
Wait. Yo, that thing's a cup of blood. That thing's a
Oh.
vampire. Oh my god, get the thing away. In China, they actually censor blood, so they make it white.
Huh.
Yeah, kind of interesting. But anyways, thank you so much for the support and letting us see that creature throw up a cup of blood. Watch us get age restricted because of YouTube's own sticker. But with
That
that,
would be messed up.
yeah, but I wouldn't doubt it. YouTube does dumb stuff like that often. But thank you so much, Silver Earth, for the support and helping us to keep this channel rolling. And comments like that saying YouTube does dumb stuff often is probably why we've largely been shadow banned. But with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Pakatang, who says, "Where is the path of the jet streams in North America presently? What altitude are they currently?"
The path of the jet streams?
Yes.
Let's see. U.S. jet stream map. There's our jet streams.
Yeah, Alabama's caught up in a little problem, a little vortex.
We're going to have a giant hurricane up here around Muscle Shoals.
Look, that blue substance, jet stream wind, whatever that is, won't even touch Alabama. It like made a curve around it.
It'll even touch Mississippi, but it won't touch good old Alabama. I'll be damned. But anyways, I hope that addresses that comment or that question fairly well. And of course, you all know what we're about to do. We're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to KM Gaming, who says, I have a point in question about the F-22 shooting down the flying object. Enforcer says it's not possible for it to be aliens. Well, it is because they come in peace. Maybe they are.
I would doubt it, mostly for this reason. If an alien civilization has the ability to travel thousands of light years, hundreds of light years, or even dozens of light years to us, and from what we know, the only inhabitable looking planets are thousands of light years from us right now. And that's actually pretty weird, because the speed of light means that we're looking at these planets thousands of years in the past, because the light from them has finally reached us, and because of that, we're looking at them and we're like, oh, look, it may be able to support life a little bit, or it's far enough or close enough to a star that it is in a Goldilocks zone where life could exist. What's interesting about that is that we're looking at that planet from thousands of years ago. So what's happening on that planet right now is thousands of years ahead of what we're actually seeing, due to how light travels at its own speed. So, I would have to say, if a civilization had the ability to travel, which would take an immense amount of energy that even with nuclear fusion being on the horizon, we probably wouldn't be able to produce for quite a long while, to transport multiple aircraft, multiple spacecraft, all the way from where they are to here, and then to come down into our atmosphere and somehow get blown up by an F-22 using an AIM-9X seems highly unlikely, because that society or that species would have to be so advanced that weaponry like we're using would have to be fairly weak, because they would have technologically advanced so far beyond weaponry like that. So I would have to say I would largely doubt the idea of it being aliens, for that reason. But with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well, and we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Dr. Packetang. He says, any symptoms of serious illness or great discomfort tonight?
No. I'm perfectly fine. The weird blood tasting came and went, for like 20 minutes 2 nights ago. Beyond that, I felt perfectly fine. Like, nothing's ever happened. I haven't felt like terrible or anything. I just feel tired, and that's normal. So nothing bad, actually. Nothing bad. So I hope that answers the question, Packetang, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from David L., who says, would it be a war crime to disperse all the fentanyl and carfentanyl that we've intercepted coming into the U.S. over orc trenches? I've never heard of carfentanyl, I've got to admit.
I think that would be something along the lines of chemical warfare without the gas part, just dropping it right onto them. So I would say that's probably not ideal. So with that, I hope we answered that. We're on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to CME4PC, who says, do you think that the unidentified flying object is an accident, or do you think China is toying with us?
I think the balloon thing was not an accident. The thing over Alaska was probably not an accident. The thing flying over the Yukon was probably not an accident either. It's all probably deliberate, if I had to take a guess. So I hope that answers the question fairly well. And with that, I just noticed that the Elson Air Force Base is right here. What we got here? Are the F-22s here? There's F-16s. They blurred it out, but you can still tell what they are, which is kind of pointless to blur it out. B-52s? And some Stratotankers. Well, just one. So this is probably the air base right here, Eelson Air Force Base, that flew their F-22s out to Yukon and then shot it down and then came back. But with that, we are on to the next one.
You know, something I just wondered, because you mentioned the Stratotankers, and I've seen people tracking those whenever there's like an incident like on Flight Radar 24. I wonder if we see that program as like a security risk, since it can track everything like that.
Maybe not. I'm not really sure.
Interesting. But anyways, it sounds like the Enforcer's yawning up a storm. So
Yes.
on to the next one. We have a $10 super chat from Craig Platel, who says Panzer Haubitz shares parts of the Leopard 2 chassis. It's hard to find exactly what parts, though. FYI, many times when using tank chassis for SPGs, the engine was moved forward.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Craig. It did look very familiar to a Leopard 1 or a Leopard 2 chassis. That's why we were like pulling that up and looking at it. But I don't really know, like you, where they would have gotten most of those, bless you, by the way, those parts.
Thank you.
Because it doesn't really seem like they're that similar rather than like the wheelbase. Maybe that's where they're getting the parts. Maybe it's the suspension system and the wheels themselves. But beyond that, I was really at a loss to figure out where the rest of the parts would be similar. So with that, I thank you for the support, Craig, and also sharing those neat facts about SPGs with us. And with that, we are on to the next live chat.
And the next one goes to Ratsma, who says numerous analysts, including other Ukrainian officials, say that the Russian offensive has already begun. It's just that it's failing miserably. What are your thoughts?
I would have to doubt that, because if it's this 500,000 magical army with about 2,000 tanks and 3,000 APCs supporting them, it wouldn't be something where you could say, supposedly it started. It would be something that you could clearly tell, like the 220,000 Russian soldiers, and keep that in mind, that started pushing into Ukraine on February 24th, and that was no small deal. You could really tell that something was happening because they were moving. We're not seeing any movement right now, in the words of Ninja, the Fortnite gamer guy. I'm not seeing a lot of movement. And then, you know, his career tanked after he said that. But anyways, with that, I hope that answers that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Krathog. He says, what happens if Russia withdraws from Ukraine but continues to lob missiles at the country?
You'll probably just see a kind of like a stalemate happening between North and South Korea, but with Russia and Ukraine Ukraine would probably start doing its own thing, probably keep its air defenses strengthened and always running like Israel does, and try and shoot down anything that comes their way. So that's most likely the direction it will go. There's only so long they can do that, though, because they have a limited number of missiles. They can't produce any more of them, so once they shoot them all, that's it. So it wouldn't last for that long. It would probably last maybe another few months, maybe 6 months if they stretch them out, and that would be the end of it. So with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well, and we're on to the next one.
All right. And also check your DMs, by the way.
I will check my DMs. Everyone's always saying, DM me this, DM me that.
Sliding right into the DMs.
See. Oh yeah, we'll check that out. Yeah. Get my Discord up here. Get those coordinates. Boop. Boop. And let's see, we'll put those in here. And up. And oh, look at that. There they are at Elmendorf Air Force Base in Anchorage. There they are, all of the F-22s. Let's count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 F-22s, sir. Reporting. Also, this one has external fuel tanks. That's pretty cool. None of the other ones do, though. Pretty cool, nonetheless. Look, there's even a picture of an F-22 flying over. How neat. I like that.
That looks eerie out there.
It does.
It looks creepy.
Looks really creepy. Really sussy. Boom, 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 boom. Let's see here. Oh,
look at that thing polluting the air.
Yeah. Whenever this thing takes off and the climate activists start talking about global warming, the two answers that this plane gives is, who cares, and it's going to get warmer.
And how dare you?
How dare you? There's a C-17 and a hard right. There's a B-52. For some reason, B-52s don't really look that big anymore. It's like they've gotten smaller over the years.
Like the Big Mac at McDonald's.
Whopper, Junior Whopper. But anyways, what the hell is this? Oh my God, Matthew, it's a it's for Nazi UFOs.
Oh, it's some kind of ritual. They're gonna go out here and do that little dance.
They're gonna sacrifice babies. You're gonna eat your baby. Anyways, with that, we're on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
Have you seen those frogs?
They're turning. I can't say that one though because YouTube won't like that. But we'll get on to the final question. They're turning the freaking frogs. Something. I'm kind of a little stupid, but anyways, we're on to the last of the night.
All right, and real quick, calling out that $5 super chat from
Call
BC
him out.
Skyman.
Call
Thank you
him
very much,
out.
BC. Call him out. Call him out. Thank you, and thank you for telling us to keep it up with the dumbbell weights in the hands of the pair. The pair is sweating it hard. But anyways, the last question of the night goes to, let's see here, Grathawk, once again, who says, is the U.S. prepared enough for a potential conflict with China? And if it happened in a short time frame, how would it affect the Ukraine war?
Oh, we are prepared entirely. Our military is much larger, much more capable, and much more advanced than the Chinese. We have a much larger budget. Our soldiers are better trained. We are definitely prepared. We would probably, this will probably have an impact on the war in Ukraine. Our support would probably increase, believe it or not, because our military spending, if a war broke out with China, would certainly increase drastically, along with our foreign support to Ukraine as well, because we would view that as a similar goal, trying to crush tyranny both in China and Russia. So we would want to support the Ukrainians to make it look like a common front and a common cause. So I feel like that's probably the way to support it. It wouldn't be negative, it would actually be positive. So with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And it's time for the stream to end for the night. I thank you all so much once again for watching. I hope we answered that last question fairly well. And if y'all enjoyed this stream, make sure to hit the like button. Make sure to comment. Make sure to subscribe. All those things help the Lee Spring Army to continue to grow and to continue to be well and healthy. Make sure to hit that like button too. We're up to 2,400 likes. Can we get to 2,500? I don't know, but it's up to y'all. And so with that, thank you all so much once again for watching. I will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine and also to run our Sunday fundraiser. Good night, take care, good luck, and Slava Ukraini.
Green from Ukraine. Jaga Jaga. Slava Ukraine. Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Ще не вмерла України ні слава, ні воля. Ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці. Запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що